Okay, I'm here. Alright, and there is my face. Looks like you guys can hear me. So, yeah. Welcome everyone, this is On Just Restart. And tonight we're going to be talking about Zelda and Mario. Just a Q&A, we've been doing every Thursday. We're going to be doing it at 8 p.m. Eastern Time moving forward on Thursdays. So, the general plan for tonight is to kind of focus a little bit more on what's going on with the Master Sword in Tears of the Kingdom. And this topic is coming from Dragon Chi. Dragon Chi messaged me, is a member. By the way, if you're a member, you can suggest podcast or live stream topics that we'll cover. So today, we're talking about the Master Sword in Tears of the Kingdom, going over the logo, looking at this new design, and sort of speculating on what's going on with that. Why is Master Sword destroyed? What are they going to improve upon it? Is there just new powers related to it? How is it going to impact the game? So we're going to be focused on speculating about that, and also about Super Mario Odyssey 2, because, well, that's what we were talking about yesterday, and there are some rumors suggesting that maybe something could happen, maybe not, and we're gonna go into that as well. And that's the general focus for the evening. But of course, this is a Q&A, so whatever you guys ask me in the chat, that's what I will focus on. But that's general, yeah, that's the goal for the evening. That's what we're talking about. So hopefully you guys can hear me and everything looks okay. Please let me know in the chat. I am checking here. Spheromancer, hello there. Dragon Chi, hello. AB James, if Odyssey 2 isn't the big holiday game this year, I wonder what it will be. Nothing. Yeah, it's an interesting consideration. Honestly, it's probably a good video topic to kind of dig a little deeper into that, because I would love to believe it's Odyssey 2 or the equivalent to an Odyssey 2, but there are people who will steer you otherwise. You look at what some of the industry insiders are saying, like, for example, Andy Robinson. They're not expecting another big game for Switch after Tears of the Kingdom until Nintendo's new hardware. And if Nintendo's new hardware is coming out holiday 2023, then that works out perfectly. But a lot of people don't seem to think that's the case. So that's where it gets a little tricky. Assuming everything we're being told is true, and that's where I have I have skepticism on every side and angle, but also hope on every side and angle too. I think what makes the most sense is that Nintendo should have a big, awesome Mario game ready for this holiday. But it just kind of seems like every holiday we're expecting some sort of big internal product from Nintendo, and we don't really get it. It just doesn't happen. Like, in the last few years, I would even argue, while we've had consistent quality releases, when it comes to Nintendo's holiday, they haven't really brought out their biggest, best guns. I mean, you take a look at this last past holiday, the 2022, they relied on Game Freak with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and that was, I mean, it's a good game, I enjoyed it, but it's also not up to the quality Nintendo standard. And then the games that came out before that in October were Bayonetta 3, made by Platinum Games, quality game, but not made by Nintendo. And then Mario Bros. Rabbids Sparks of Hope, made by Ubisoft. So Game Freak, while Pokemon is a Nintendo IP, Nintendo owns Pokemon, Game Freak is technically a developer that isn't internal Nintendo. They make Pokemon, so no internal projects there. And so there's nothing in November, October that's big from Nintendo. Let's go back to 2021. In 2021, we had Metroid Dread, which was made by Mercury Steam. Yes, Nintendo helped out with that. Yoshio Sakamoto was at the head of that project. but it was made by Mercury Steam, a Spanish studio. A great quality game, but not internal Nintendo. I don't know who made Mario Party Superstars, actually. That's something. I mean, it's kind of like a... It's a I don't know what you call it, because it's basically a... It's taking old maps and mini games and bringing them together in a modern way. Developer ND Cube, which, if I'm not mistaken, is an internal Nintendo. Yes. So Mario Party Superstars came out 2021. That was an internal Nintendo project. Shin Megami Tensei 5, no, that's not internal Nintendo. Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl was actually the first outsourced Pokemon game, so that's interesting. So we had Metroid Dread, Mario Party, Shin Megami Tensei 5, SMT 5, and Pokemon. Yeah, the only internal project was Mario Party, but it was like a remake collection. It's good. It's good. It's like, I think it might be the best Mario Party game on Switch, but that's it. And then we go back to 2020. We had Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. That was our holiday game. And that's a Musou game. The best-selling Musou game ever. It's based off Breath of the Wild. Amazing. But it's not made by Nintendo. It's made by Koei Tecmo. And they gave us Pikmin 3 Deluxe, a Wii U enhancement with some extra content in there, which, you know, it's something. It's cool, but yeah, like, just kind of thinking on it. It's not that I'm not trying to argue that the holidays have been bad. They've just been kind of tame in terms of having internal Nintendo projects. They haven't really been there. Now, it's not to say we haven't gotten them. Splatoon 3, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, those came out this past year. And they're fantastic games. They're really good games, but they didn't come out in the holiday. And now Tears of the Kingdom, not coming out for the holiday, not even coming out to close out the fiscal year, coming out May. So it's strange, right? So like, I could tell you, man, it seems really odd that Nintendo hasn't come out with one of their big internal projects for the holiday in a while. But like, if you look at the last 3 years, it doesn't seem they really care about that. So, you know, I guess where I'm coming from here is, while I love the idea of a 3D Mario coming out this year, and I think there's a lot of sense behind it with the Mario movie, and I think we are due. Nintendo has shown that they might be okay with not doing that, which to me breaks my heart a little bit. And I say only a little bit because it's not like we're not getting good games. We've been getting consistent quality releases across the years. But it hasn't been like, oh man, the holiday's coming, there's going to be like this really big Nintendo game every holiday. Like, that hasn't been the pattern. So, I don't know. That's why I wish I could just tell you with 100% certainty that Mario Odyssey 2 or whatever it is coming out this holiday. But Nintendo's been strange. DW for Smash. Hello. JR Tolkien. About to sneeze, excuse me. Trying not to sneeze. I'm trying not to. Ugh. I heard The Legend of Zelda Super Mario Tears of the Odyssey is going to be a launch title for Nintendo Switch E4. Pretty stoked. Me too. Yeah, like, I already put in my pre-order, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be 100% amazing. That's a joke. Awesome Aubrey, hello. Samuel, hello there. Actually, let's see, I think you provided a super chat earlier. Thank you very much for that super chat. So you ask, do you think we'll get another gritty Zelda like Twilight Princess again? That's a fun question. So, alright. Do I think there will be another gritty Zelda again? Yeah, I do. Gritty. So Twilight, it's like exactly to your point with the quotes. It's definitely going to be there's gonna be something in the future that will be more along those lines, but it's gonna be a while. Right, Nintendo is riding the Breath of the Wild train. Tears of the Kingdom is following that direction. Same art style. We still don't know much about the game. It's less than 4 months away. I'm sure we're going to get a blowout in February, probably. And they're going to ride with that, and that's going to be our Zelda for a while. I'm anticipating that they're even going to have an expansion that's going to help to lengthen the life of Tears of the Kingdom on top of that. Like, I feel like they'll have I think they're going to have a longer DLC cycle for Tears of the Kingdom that'll be like a year to year and a half. And during this window, we'll see the release of Switch 2, I think. And they'll tie in an enhanced version for Tears of the Kingdom alongside the expansion. That's what I'm thinking. And that's it's going to be how they're going to kind of satisfy the need to have like a major Zelda to push new hardware without actually having a major Zelda push new hardware. And we're probably going to have to wait another 4 to 5 years, best case scenario, for the next Zelda. Best case scenario. But when that time comes, when we're all ancient and bald and wrinkly, there will be a new Zelda game. And this new Zelda game will have a different art style. I don't think they're going to stick with the Breath of the Wild style forever. Usually, every Zelda game has a completely new look, but because they decided to do a direct sequel, it looks like Breath of the Wild. And by that time, the hardware is going to be a lot more powerful too. So it's going to look good. So, they're going to be able to do something special. And I wouldn't even be surprised if by the time we get the next mainline Zelda after Tears of the Kingdom, we're already talking about the next system, and maybe that's like a cross-generation release or something. I really hope we don't have to wait that long, but that's the kind of pattern Nintendo has been sort of demonstrating with Zelda. Like, every Zelda is taking longer and longer to make, so we'll see. But yeah, it's I do think we're gonna see different art styles. To your point, or to your question. And maybe it's with the next one. I actually anticipate that the next one will go a little bit more on the side of realism, but not so much realism, but maybe less cel-shaded. Maybe going for something like I think the best sort of way to kind of gauge what they can do is take a look. If you search, I'm gonna show you guys. I'll just show you guys. That's the easiest way. Let's see here. There's I'm sure a lot of you have seen it already, but there is the Wii U Zelda tech demo. This came out back in 2011, and this was a beautiful, beautiful tech demo. And I'm gonna show you guys here in a second. One moment. Alright, let me set this up. Okay. This was a beautiful, beautiful trailer. And some people still feel like this looks better than Breath of the Wild, which I think is debatable, but there's a lot of things about it that look pretty amazing. Okay. I think... Well, if I do this, then I know for sure it'll work. Okay, cool. Alright, so check this out. Game trailers, I don't even know if they're a thing anymore. I mean, it's blurry and pixelated, but imagine if it was at a higher resolution. Like, this is just insane how good it looks. Like, imagine a Zelda game that looked like this. Slightly different, but like, this was just meant to suggest like the kind of visuals that the Wii U could output. And it's not an open world area; it's a closed environment. So I think they could have made something look this good on Wii U. But I think this kind of environment, but open world, I think is possible on the next Nintendo system. and it would look amazing. Now, it wouldn't look exactly like this, right? But just imagine this level of detail with you know, a boss and an environment like this. Like this kind of stuff is cool. Yeah, so you know, this is one of my favorite tech demos to look at because it just looks amazing. Yeah, so I think yes, at some point we will get to something like that. Now, people will think, oh, well, you know, Breath of the Wild is like the ideal art style, and I think it is a great art style, but Nintendo's going to try something different as they usually do. If you look at throughout the Zelda history, they always go with a different art style. So I think that the next one's going to be different. And I think they're going to go in a slightly more realistic direction because I think they're going to have more powerful hardware that can present that better. Yeah. Also, I see here Natsu has joined as a member. Thank you for joining, Natsu. I'm glad you have joined. I really appreciate it. And if you ever want to join it for one of the call-in segments or recommend a topic for the live streams, please let me know. Joy CJ, hello there. Thank you for letting me know everything looks and sounds good. Dragon Chi, thank you for letting me know everything sounds great. Connor O'Doherty, hello. Hello there, Having Hope. Hello there, Zelda Fan Film Channel. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I'm great. AB James, could a new 3D Donkey Kong fill the void? Would it fill the void? Yes. Will it fill the void? I don't know. And, you know, I don't... one thing I think, people have been talking about a lot lately is like, oh, 3D Donkey Kong, open world Donkey Kong. And that would be amazing. But I don't know if that's what they're doing. I don't know. Like, I don't want to say it's impossible. I just don't expect it. And I just feel like they're going to go with something that's more what we've come to expect from Donkey Kong. I'm expecting something that's like a Donkey Kong Country on the Wii U, but also like Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. Basically, just imagine a fusion of Metroid Dread and Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. Like that. Like, there's going to be a lot of moments where where you'll see Donkey Kong from behind the shoulder where he's pummeling an enemy, and it's going to look good. Like, they're going to play around the perspective a lot, but it's still going to be mostly side-scrolling gameplay with co-op and hopefully online. I think it'll be a quality Donkey Kong game. I think there's like a 50% chance it comes out this year, but I'm not expecting a different type of gameplay style. Like, I would love that. I would love it if they were to like make a new Donkey Kong game off of the Odyssey engine. I think that would be really cool. And what's interesting about the Odyssey engine, well, just like Odyssey in general, Odyssey in some ways is more similar to Banjo and Kazooie than Mario 64, because it's like a collectathon, like Banjo. And what's interesting about that is that if they were to base a Donkey Kong off of the Odyssey engine, it would kind of maybe feel in some ways like a spiritual successor to Donkey Kong 64, because the Banjo-Kazooie engine was also used for Donkey Kong 64. Like, Donkey Kong 64 was also a collectathon platformer like Banjo and Kazooie back on the Nintendo 64. So if they were to make a new Donkey Kong, and the initial rumor was that it was the Mario Odyssey team working on this Donkey Kong game, and that would lead one to believe that that's the direction they would go. But some rumors have suggested otherwise, and we're not 100% certain that that's the team that was doing it. Who's working on 3D Mario? Because they're always working on 3D Mario, and that's a whole other question to consider. But something else to note is that after Jungle Beat, that EPD team went on to make the Mario Galaxy games. It's the Mario team. So I am curious, like, what direction they will go. But I guess the main point is that they could do both, and I think they could do an amazing job. I think most likely it'll be a side-scrolling Donkey Kong game. Although, I'll say this. I think a 3D Donkey Kong game has more sales potential, and if you want to get the sales, you do that. Of course, maybe you could also argue that maybe they go for the side-scrolling perspective because they're trying to appeal to that nostalgia from the old Donkey Kong days, the initial Donkey Kong or even the initial Donkey Kong Country game. So that's something else. That's something else to consider. They can go in either. It's really a toss-up, I guess, like what direction they're gonna go. It's safer to maybe go for like a 2D style Donkey Kong game, but if the Mario Odyssey team were to make a 3D Donkey Kong game, I know it would be good and it would sell well. It would be significant, and maybe that is what is used to fill the void for this holiday. And if that's what's used to fill the void for the holiday, I'm all about it. I think that would be amazing, and maybe that's what tides us over until 2024 when a new Switch is ready with a new 3D Mario. Like that, I would love it. I'm just not convinced of it, so I'm not going to be like, yep, that's what's happening, you know? Brian Doe, thank you very much for the super chat. What's with I'm never going to give you up? That is the eternal Rickroll. That is the meme of memes. So, you know, that's just something people have been doing for years. That's pretty much it. Joy CJ, you're emailing your therapist? Why? Oh wait, let me see what you initially said here. I just need some Tears of the Kingdom info. I'm starting to go stir crazy. Someone tell me it's going to be okay. Joy CJ, it is going to be okay. Relax. The news is coming. I predict that we are less than a month away from significant official Tears of the Kingdom news directly from Nintendo. There you go. It's just a prediction. I don't actually know, but I feel very strongly about it. Feel very confident about it. Yeah. Let's see here. Okay, I got a bit of a chat jump, so I'm a little lost. Yeah, Narwhal Gaming. Mario Party Superstars is a very good Mario Party game. Squid in 64. Do you think a Metroid Prime remake should use a dual analog control scheme for moving Samus in the camera? Yes. I think they should. I think that they also should have gyro controls. I think that will make a big difference. Have a night, kind of like Splatoon. Of course, it'll be optional. You can turn it off. But I think that's the best way to go about the game in terms of moving around and aiming. And I think the beams should be relegated to the face buttons. Maybe each independent button is a attack. Like there's 4 different beams, you have 4 different buttons. And then jumping and locking on, that's all done with the triggers. There's 4 triggers, so lock on could be 1, jumping could be another, and you still have 2 more. So, you know, they could put missiles on another one of the bumpers, and grapple could be on another one. There you go. Works. And the map could be one of the clickable sticks, and the other could be Morph Ball. There's the controls, and advisors are on the D-pad. That's your answer. Then we still haven't used select or start yet, so we're good. Yeah. Let's see here. Harley Sonder. I think it's impossible that a new Nintendo Switch would come out before 2024 with the final Mario Kart DLC wave releasing at the end of 2023. It all depends how backwards compatible the Nintendo Switch 2 would be, though. We could still know about it before then, though. So, I've seen this argument before, and I disagree with it. But the reason why I disagree with it, Harley, is, as you know, it depends on how backwards compatible the Switch 2 is. And we've seen from Nintendo's financials, like Shigeru Miyamoto himself has talked about, how they're going to have a system in place that will trans over a lot more seamlessly. They've talked about how nowadays it's a lot easier to port games over because there's a very similar development environment. But also, because now Nintendo is charging for online subscriptions, they have incentive to carry over the same online system. So, with that in mind, any sort of eShop purchases that you make, especially if the system is backwards compatible, my perspective is that all of that's going to translate over. So, the thinking that the DLC itself is telling us that it can't happen, I don't agree with, because the DLC could come out be available for the other system, for the next system too, because I believe the system will be backwards compatible, and I think all of the online stuff is going to transfer over seamlessly pretty much. That said, that doesn't mean the system's coming out in 2023. It could still come out in 2024. There's debate there, but I will acknowledge that most insiders are saying, or saying is the wrong word. No insider is saying they know when it's coming, but most insiders are saying they think it's coming in 2024. So, yeah, take that for what you will. But I don't think things like Mario Kart DLC would be the reason suggesting so, because I think all of the online stuff will transfer over just fine. Paco Salvador, did you see the news that Nintendo is planning to make more Switch units for the next fiscal year? Yes, I did. I saw it right before I went live. So, I haven't had a chance to read the whole article. But yes, I saw it. Takashi Mochizuki, thank you for pointing that out for me, Paco. Put out a report on Bloomberg that supposedly Nintendo is going to really focus on meeting demand this year and putting out even more Switch systems. That, to me, is crazy. It's crazy, but if the Switch 2 is coming out in 2024, I could see it. Like, I could see a scenario where they go all in on selling Switch this year as much as they can. They have the Zelda OLED. They really push that this year. They have some quality releases, maybe not like super significant releases that sell 10 plus million, but maybe they come out with the Donkey Kong, right? They come out with the 2D Mario game. They have the Metroid Prime HD, the F-Zero, maybe Kid Icarus fits in there somehow, and then you got Pikmin 4 and Zelda, and that's a quality lineup of games. And they have the OLED, and it does great. Like, and never mind that we are in Splatoon DLC, we still have the Mario Kart DLC, we have the Xenoblade DLC, there's the Fire Emblem DLC, Zelda's gonna get DLC, Pokemon DLC, like, they have Mario Rabbids DLC, like, they have content for the year. So, in a lot of ways, I am thinking maybe they do wait until 2024 at this point. Like, I feel like my brain is transitioning over to that. But ultimately, I think I'll be fully decided by the time we see the February Direct. That will kind of, for me, kind of truly gauge where we're at. But I can see them just milking this year as much as they can, selling as much hardware as they can, really, really trying to do as much as they can off of Tears of the Kingdom with that OLED. And I'm concerned that maybe they won't close the year strong, but there's something that Nintendo's been holding back on that is an interesting tell that maybe they are waiting a little bit more than we want them to. And that's why there still hasn't been a price drop. There's been no price drop, and I think that is probably more of a tell than other things that maybe we're not that close to a new system release. Because, like, well, the Switch is $300, Switch OLED is $350. What do you think they're going to price Switch 2 at? You think it's just going to be $50 more than OLED? And at $400 for $400? I don't think so. And I don't think they can get away with selling a $500 system either. Not if that's meant to be like their mainstream device eventually. I think that we're gonna get a price drop before the next system comes out. That's where my brain's at right now. So I could see them using 2023 as like that last really big year, and then 2024 is where they transition. Now, my concern with this is if Nintendo waits this long to transition over to the next system, where's momentum going to be at? That's where I'm concerned. Because I don't think Nintendo should wait that long. I think Nintendo, that's part of the reason why the Wii to Wii U transition was so bad. They waited too long to switch over to their next system. Now, granted, the Wii died off quickly. Even though it was incredibly successful, it lost momentum quick. Like, it peaked in the third year and just nosedived. Let me show you. There's a video I'm working on. I'm probably gonna have to like redo a lot of things about the video, but check this out. It's part of. Let me show you. Okay. Yeah, I can just put that there. Okay. Check this out. Okay, this is Nintendo DS. This is Wii and Wii U. The light blue is Wii. The dark blue is Wii U. First year ending fiscal year 2007. That means 2000. That means most of 2006 and the beginning of 2007, ending in March, because they came out on the holiday, so they only had a few months. 5.84. Next year, 18.61. It's their first full year out on the market. Very strong. Third year, second full year, 25.95. But after this point, they're already dipping down by 5, by 5. By a little bit more than 5, by 5. Like, by every year, they're dipping by about 5 million every year on the Nintendo Wii. So, first full year, second full year, third full year, fourth full year, fifth full year. Like this, the Wii U came out here, right? So 1 holiday, 2 holidays, 3 holidays, 4 holidays, 5 holidays, 6 holidays. They waited until the 7th holiday to release the Wii U. And what's funny is the Wii outsold the Wii U this holiday. Like, that's part of that's probably to demand, but I mean supply. But they waited too long. Like, they were on a downward trend for years, and that's unfortunate. Meanwhile, Switch. Let me show you this. This is just something I've been working on. Check this out. Okay, this is from Nintendo's website. The only thing I did was add some numbers here, and it just it's just easier to read. You don't need these little crosshairs, kind of. This is GIMP, by the way. It's a cheat. It's a free Photoshop, basically. So first year Switch, 15.5 million. Second year, 16.97. Like this, they were trending up for 4 years. This was because of COVID, though, so that's why the spike. This is downwards. And the 6th year we're in now, we're a couple months before it ends, and we don't have the numbers on it yet, but right now we're looking, let's see, Nintendo's projecting 19 million, so we're close to around there. Like, some people think Nintendo might actually hit the 21 million, but so we're gonna get about 19 to 20 to 21 million for that 6th year. So still dipping down. So we're dipping down, and for me, that's what suggests to me the most that Nintendo needs to move on new hardware. We're seeing this downward trend, but Nintendo contends that the reason why we're seeing the downward trend is because of supply shortage. My thing is, I don't know. Like, that's 29 to 23, and then they lowered their expectations by 2 million from 21, which is not listed here, to 19 because of supply shortages, because of semiconductor shortage. I mean, that's a couple years of dipping, and then we take a look at Nintendo DS. This is DS sales. Comes out holiday 2004. First full year, second full year, third full year, fourth full year. So, like, still rising, and then now it starts to dip. And they announced the 3DS once the DS started to dip. First year, where we got the earnings. So March 2010, that's when they announced that they were working on the 3DS, and a few months later, that E3 is when they unveiled the system. Here. Meanwhile, Switch, we're looking at a couple years of dippage with no announcement of new hardware. So it's just it's different. I hope Nintendo doesn't fall into the trap of, like, waiting too long, because I think that would be bad. You have so much momentum right now. People are buying Switches. I'm afraid what Nintendo's going to do is just milk Switch as long as they can and wait till it dies and then start from scratch again. I think what they need to do is not do that. I think they need to come out with their next system while the Switch is doing well. Yes, once it's starting to dip, which you can argue is happening now. So my perspective is the Switch 2 should come out this year, 2023. Like, that's what I think makes the most sense. But we're seeing signs that Nintendo's going to come a year late. Now, of course, Nintendo knows more than I do, right? They have industry analysts and experts and access to more information and research. And, you know, maybe they think they can wait another year. And maybe they can, because the momentum Switch has had has been very strong. So, we'll see. But the numbers are interesting. Let's see here. I got another super chat from Brian Doe. Thank you again for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Brian says, proprietary emulator is the key. A lot of money and effort is put into making a proprietary emulator. They got in trouble for stealing ROMs before. You know, it's interesting that you bring up emulation, because that may be what Nintendo has to do for their backwards compatibility. So for those that are not familiar with that terminology, so emulation is, I'm not like a tech guru, but emulation is basically just getting a game to run on hardware it's not meant for, I guess. Like it's like a software program that's put together to run a game on hardware it's not intended for. So like, you ever hear about like Dolphin or Project 64, things like that, Citra. These are different emulators that you can get on PC to run Nintendo games and stuff that you maybe shouldn't be doing if you don't own the games, but that's something that people do. But emulators don't just exist like that. They exist inside actual systems so they can run previous games. And like, for example, 3D All-Stars has an emulator to actually emulate the 3 different Mario games in that collection. And you take a look at how Nintendo handled backwards compatibility with the Wii U. They basically just shoved a Wii inside the Wii U, and it boots into Wii mode, as opposed to running natively on the Wii U. So it's kind of strange how they did that. I've been optimistic that the way they're going to design the next Switch, it's running on NVIDIA tech, like it's just an upgraded NVIDIA chip. So setting up the backwards compatibility wouldn't be that hard. That's what I've been hoping for. I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but I do believe that the system will be backwards compatible. Even if it's a challenge somehow, and I know some people have talked about it's going to be challenging, I think the benefits of backwards compatibility are too significant to not have. You look at all the evergreen titles that are selling so well on Switch, and the possibility that maybe the next system could even improve those games somewhat. Like, I don't mean anything significant like 4K. I just mean, like, if a game has frame rate issues, run smoother. If a game has a dynamic resolution that varies because of performance, is a little sharper. Little things like that. So games look and run a little bit better on a newer piece of hardware. They'll give people more reason to play their old games on there, give people more reason to buy the next system, and it'll help to have a smoother transition from the successful Switch to whatever's next. So I think backwards compatibility is really likely. So, you know, that's what I think on that. I know there's been debate there, but I just think it makes too much sense for Nintendo to not do. Not to mention, historically speaking, every time they've had a very successful system, they always followed up with a system that is similar, just improved upon in some way, and has backwards compatibility. So I think it's very, very likely it will be backwards compatible. Brian Doe. The Switch hardware is also easy to emulate. I see people doing all sorts of videos online all the time, I'll tell you that. And I'll also say that another neat thing that Nintendo has sort of benefited by switching over to NVIDIA and using just like the stock Tegra thing, it hasn't been as hard. It's been easier to develop for the Switch than it was, say, for like the Wii U. It wasn't like this weird sort of setup, this customized thing that's just different from everything else in the industry that developers have to figure out. So it's easier to make games for the Switch, and I hope they kind of stick to that process for the Switch too, because why make it harder for developers? So that's kind of what I think there. But again, thank you for the additional super chat there, Brian. I very much appreciate it. Moving on here. Well, did I fully cover the point about the... Yeah, I pretty much talked about the report from Bloomberg and Takashi Mochizuki. I don't know what to make of them putting out more Switches. I guess maybe it does strengthen the argument that Switch 2 is not coming till next year, but I still take it with some level of grain of salt. Joy CJ added me. How would you feel about Tears of the Kingdom ending the cycle and 2035 Zelda be a whole new thing, a futuristic setting maybe? Why do you gotta say 2035? Like that's a long time from now. It's 12 years. Are you implying that there's gonna be a trilogy? I do like the idea of Tears of the Kingdom itself being the game where we finish Ganondorf and that cycle is destroyed somehow. That doesn't mean there can't be a new evil in the future. That doesn't mean they can't go back to previous time periods and like they can fill in holes. They like really like they can make any kind of Zelda game they want in any sort of time period and fit it between other Zelda games. Like they can do that whenever they want. They can go before Skyward Sword, and they can go somewhere in this mass of thousands of years between Breath of the Wild and everything in the past. Like the largest gap in history in the Zelda timeline is between Breath of the Wild and everything before it. Like that's the largest gap, and they can put in as many games as they want in that timeline, that period. So even if they were to end Ganondorf for good, break the cycle, even if that means like ending the cycle of Demise, which I'm skeptical of that. I'm just thinking that they end Ganondorf, but even Ganon, but even if they go that step further and end the entire cycle, including the Spirit of Hatred Demise, they can still make another Zelda game in the future. They can come up with another idea to make that important. Like I could see that. I think it'd be really cool if they were to go in a different direction. And also, I'm not opposed to a more futuresque Zelda. Now, I'll also say, I think with how long it takes them to make Zelda games, if we were to get a Zelda game that's all like very like futury and there's no like medieval-ish type of Zelda for like over a decade, that would suck. So, maybe they can go, like, for example, if Tears of the Kingdom, maybe like a direct sequel, they could do that, where it's like straight up like in a future-esque environment, or it's like a mix, like where there are parts that are like very steampunk and like straight up like kind of cities like we see in real life today or something, or a little bit more futuristic, but they also have parts that still have like the forests and trees and ancient ruins and stuff. Like, I would be excited to see, like, a world with a blend like that. It might be actually really cool. Like, maybe imagine a Zelda game where maybe they almost take, like, a pseudo Attack on Titan approach, not in terms of time period, but in terms of, like, having these cities or even countries that are encased in walls. And imagine, like, a massive map of Hyrule, a futuristic Hyrule, where there are cities, and these cities are completely enclosed. They may even have some, like, they're big areas. They're big areas that they're self-contained, but they have these big walls because they don't want you to get out those walls. They're trying to protect you from something. So when you go into the wild, it's a whole other beast, and that's where you can explore, like, crazy ruins, but also powerful magical beasts that are stronger, more powerful, larger than ever before. So it's almost like society tried to escape from, like, the craziness of Hyrule. Like, and there would be a really cool duality to have something like that. I think it could be amazing. And that might be one way they could kind of do that, where they can have, like, a futuristic Zelda that has those elements, but still has, like, the sprawling green hills and fields and forests and mountains and stuff. They can still do both. Samuel A., thank you again for that super chat. I was super appreciated. Oh, you're an Attack on Titan fan. Thoughts on them splitting the final season part 3 into 2 cores? So I stopped watching Attack on Titan its final season. I read the manga, and I will watch the entire final season from beginning to end again. Like, I've seen the final season several times, the first parts. I stopped watching maybe the last half or something. Like, it's confusing now, right? So, like, the finals, I think it's stupid that they've turned the final season into, like, 4, 5, 6 seasons. Like, I hate that, honestly. That annoys me. If you were gonna do that, don't call it the final season. It's they've been dragging on the final season at this point for a few years. Don't do that. So, not a fan of them splitting it up like the way they have. Like, I thought it was one thing when it was final season, and they decided to make a part 2. Didn't love it, but okay. I didn't watch part 2. I only watched part 1 of the final season. But then I hear that the part 2 only is leading to a part 3, and now part 3 is gonna be divided into 2 different cores. I hate that. Like, why? But I'll say this. Having only seen the first seasons and then the final season, but just part 1, so, you know, having seen all that, I think that spreading out the way they are, I'm hoping this means that they're at least executing on telling the story and animating everything in the most quality way possible. So, on one end, while I hate that the final season has been split up into, like, 6 parts, well, 1, 2, I guess 4 parts is how it's going to be. I think that's annoying. I also will say that by splitting up that much, I would expect that means that they're going to do a really good job of it. So, we'll see. I'll judge it fully once I watch everything in completion, but at this point, I'm just going to kind of wait until it's all out, and that's when I'll watch it. Harley Sonder, I don't think they've ever made a Zelda game where I actually dislike the visual style. It's never turned me off from a Zelda game, so I'm not afraid of change on that front. Yeah, I'm not afraid of change either. Great perks, but okay, not to. Great perks, but I just enjoy supporting. I don't really take advantage of perks anywhere when I become a member. Hey, I appreciate you being a member. Just so everyone knows, there are perks of being a member. You can take advantage of them. Zelda fans from channel, you've been trying to join a call. Yes. Are you saying you're a member on Patreon or YouTube? If you can join. That's a feature for members. If I've missed it, I'm sorry. I'll look into that for you. Super Julian 64 and Amigos. I actually have the same prediction you did before I subbed to you, bro. You're too good. Thank you. I appreciate that. But which prediction are you talking about? Which one? Because I see the comments like minutes after I've been talking, so I missed some of the stuff. The bigger reality. Thank you, Andre, for making these videos and lives. We appreciate it. I'm glad you're enjoying it, and thank you for pointing that out. I enjoy doing this. Celtic 14. Andres, Interesting guys, new info hit Bloomberg Twitter. Sounds like Nintendo making more OLEDs in April, so who knows about a next-gen Switch this year. Yes, I guess we touched on that already, for sure. Definitely, it's seeming a little bit less likely if Nintendo's focusing on making as many Switches as they can this year. I wouldn't say it's the 100% like no way possible, but it is. I do agree it's becoming less and less likely that it's happening this year. Super Julian 64. February sounds like a month for a direct because Engage has been released and Tears of the Kingdom is only a few months away. We barely have any kind of knowledge or sneak peeks about it. Yeah, I think we're a lot of us are on the same page with that one. Let's see here. Oh, I missed this super chat from Brian Doe. Thank you for that super chat. Considering the producer, this is the third game. Talking about Zelda. If you count Age of Calamity, I guess. Yeah. Nintendo Worlds. Hey Andre, what are your thoughts on Zelda possible getting a more mature game after Tears of the Kingdom? Maybe something akin to move to a rating up to M in the future. I feel that will probably never happen, unfortunately. Like, you know, I just watched Princess Mononoke, and something is interesting about Princess Mononoke. It has a lot of things about it that feel very, very Zelda. There's a beast that looks like Calamity Ganon. They have these creatures that look like Koroks. The art style, I mean, Breath of the Wild is inspired by it. The main character feels a lot like how Link should be done. Really cool. And he even had like this demonically powered arm that seems a lot like Link's arm in Tears of the Kingdom. And it powers him up. Like, he can do all sorts of crazy things unintentionally, but whenever he like shoots an arrow at something, like, it blows off limbs and heads. Like, the game's bloody. I mean, the movie's bloody. There are some mature themes there. I don't think that the movie is so dark that it would be considered like rated R, not like that dark, but it is definitely, I think it's like a PG-13 kind of thing, and I wouldn't be opposed to the next Zelda maybe having a teen rating. I don't know how much that could impact sales, and I think one of the things with Nintendo is that they want to make sure a Zelda game sells as great as it possibly can. That all said, yeah, I mean, I think Nintendo's probably going to stick with the E10 rating, just because they want to appeal to as large of an audience as possible. Now, Twilight Princess did have a teen rating, and Twilight Princess before Breath of the Wild was the best-selling Zelda game. So, you know, I don't know. Like, I guess what I'm curious on is how much does that rating impact sales? I don't know, and I think that does matter to Nintendo somewhat. That all said, I do think they can go in a direction that's a little bit darker than Breath of the Wild, and supposedly Tears of the Kingdom is going to be doing that. Now, art style does impact things, right? It's very cel-shaded. It looks kind of cartoony, very anime-esque. But as I just brought up, Princess Mononoke is an anime, but it still has a lot of dark themes. It's very bloody. There's a lot of mature themes there. I mean, we were just talking a little bit about Attack on Titan. I mean, for goodness sake, Attack on Titan, like, that's not a show for kids. I would never, when I have kids someday, I'm not gonna let them watch Attack on Titan until, like, I know they can watch, like, bloody, scary, mature things. So, you know, an anime-esque game or movie that that's like mature-ish would be cool, but I never expect them to do rated M. It limits sales too much. That's not really what we come to expect from Zelda, and Nintendo's very careful about their branding and appearance. No, Joyce J, don't do this. Joyce J says Link and Zelda are in high school current day and go back in time with an iPhone app. No. We're not having that. Hello there, Super Chris. How are you? Hello there, Charles. Oh, hello there, Midnight Naomi. You missed your 1-year anniversary of being a member? Well, I'm glad you're here. Thank you for stopping by. Very much appreciated. So, alright, Zelda found child. I will take a look at that, okay? And we'll figure it out. Alright, so let's jump into the first topic. We've been doing Q&A for like an hour. I mean, that's the main point, so it's fine. Let me take a drink of this. That's iced tea, by the way. Guys, if you could like the stream, be very much appreciated. It really helps us out to get to even larger audiences. It's super helpful, so please do so. I'd appreciate it. What we're going to talk about now is the first part of tonight's sort of focus, and that's the Master Sword. So, Dragon Chi, a member, asked me to cover this topic. So I'm going to read off what Dragon Chi told me. So I actually have a topic that's right up your alley. Since you're on the path of making connections with Twilight Princess and Tears of the Kingdom, it's in my opinion that we're going to use Twilight or Zonite technology to reforge the sword in such a manner that's never been seen before. Which goes along with what you've been saying about how powerful Ganon has become now. That the basic Master Sword is not enough. I would love to hear you discuss this potential idea. And to go even further, what powers or abilities the sword will be granted with that technology imbued into it. And how we go about getting this done throughout the game. I'm all for this idea. I'm all for it. Like, at some point I think it's going to be a video, so... yeah. Okay. So, just so people kind of are on the same page. Master Sword is broken. Yeah? So, with the first trailer, hold on. Let me see here. Okay, cool. Alright. So, I was just checking a couple messages. Alright. The Master Sword breaks in the sequel trailer. The first one. Well, I guess we don't know. We know that it breaks. Okay, so the events in the trailers, the first couple trailers, Link and Zelda are going into this tomb. They run into Ganondorf, and he wakes up or comes back to life. And the mouse attacks them. Zelda falls down a hole. Link's arm gets ruined. He looks like he's saved by this weird Zonai hand, and the Master Sword gets wrecked. It looks like it's corroded even. And we see this corroded sword in this little quick snippet that Eiji Aonuma gave us with the development update when the game was delayed. So the sword's been corroded. It's basically half a sword now. And Link's been wrecked. He's up in the sky. But if we take a look at the Tears of the Kingdom logo, we see like an outline for almost like an energy sword. So let me show you guys that. I know you guys know what I'm talking about, but I'm just going to kind of like literally just show you. So, actually, this is a great way to do it. Alright, so I guess I'm just literally going to show you the thumbnail for today's video. That's a great way to just... because I have it on the thumbnail intentionally. So, check this out. Alright, so this is from the logo, okay? And when you take a look at the Master Sword, you see the Master Sword, looks normal. Oh, there's the corrosion. Oh no, what happened to it? So it's half the sword, but it's completed with these green-like runes. And what's interesting about these green-like runes is that we see basically the same kind of depiction with the green swirls in the trailer. and some of the green energy we see like on that Armos-like thing in the second trailer. This seems to be some sort of power or magic that's coming from this civilization that's being alluded to. And many of us believe this civilization is the Zonai. Why do we think it's a Zonai? We think it's a Zonai because the Zonai are a known culture that were depicted throughout Breath of the Wild with all the different, like, statues or different animal statues, a lot of which were dragons. There was a hexagon things, there was the labyrinths. All of those ruins were Zonai, not Sheikah, Zonai. And what we know of the Zonai is that they were a tribe. I mean, they seem to be a warrior tribe, at least based off of there's like this warrior armor. However, we've seen a description that actually tells us that the Zonai were a magic-using tribe that disappeared suddenly. And this is where the mention of the Twilight comes in. Because the Twilight from Twilight Princess are considered the Twilight because they're in the Twilight Realm. But what were they before they were sent over to the Twilight Realm? Maybe they were the Zonai. Magic users that disappeared suddenly. It's the same story. The same story for the Zonai is the same story for the Twilight. So, I think it's possible. And when you take into consideration that when we look at the Twilight, you look at some of the characters. Let me show you this. Yeah, this is perfect. Let's go for it. Alright, here we go. I think this does a great job. I'm just gonna show you Midna. Just want to show you this image. Check this out. Okay. This is Midna. Alright? Now, there are other things that look kind of like the green energy I've referred to. Let me see if I can look at other stuff. I want to type Twilight. I typed Twilig, and then instead of Zelda, I put a Zeld. Didn't help with my Google search. Okay. What in the world? Why can't I see the... I don't know. I can't even, like, find anything right now. Anyway, I think this is good enough for now. I'll just focus on this for now. Point is, there's different structures in the Twilight realm and characters that have, like, this green-like rune thing upon them. And we see similar stuff with the Zonai green stuff. And even this, if you ask me, looks not too different from the Zonai stones and statues we've seen. It's comparable. Zonai ruins. Hopefully the Google search doesn't betray me now. No, it has. We're done. We're done. It's all over. Nah, here we go. Here we go. This is something. I'm not trying to argue that they're exactly the same, but I'm saying that there's a similarity. So you look at that. You look at this. I'm not saying it's exactly the same, but it's comparable. There's a similarity. So I just bring this stuff up because it's possible that there is a link, and it may be intentional, it may not be. Keep in mind, different art designs. It's been years since Twilight Princess at this point, but they could bring back some of these ideas. Now, the Twilight are their own thing. They were sent off to the Twilight Realm. But what they were beforehand was a Zonai, and if it somehow ties into a Twilight Realm in some way, shape, or form, I'm not necessarily against that. I just don't think it's likely. That said, I'm trying to get back to the stream so I can see the chat. There's this people, there's this energy, right? And I think that those runes we see on the Master Sword could be tied to this tribe. Now, whether they're Twilight or not, there's this tribe. And something that we have seen is when we take a look at the Bunny Zonai. There we go. Oh, perfect. This is the image I was looking for. Okay, check this out. Check this out. I'm showing you guys now. Let me show you this. So this image is perfect because what it does is it shows us the Bunny Zone. I refer to this thing as the Bunny Zonai. Some people think it might look like Midna, hence the Twilight Zonai comparisons and such. But let's ignore that because it's not really that important right now. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 of these. And there's this idea that maybe these are each tiers. And this is related to the 7 sages. And what's interesting is that the Master Sword has been said to have been made by the sages, the 7 sages. So, with the Master Sword being destroyed, I think that there's reason to believe that there's going to be this effort to find the 7 sages and restore the Master Sword, a common Zelda trope they've done in the past. But this is where it starts to get a little different. So, you guys remember the theories about the 8th heroine in Breath of the Wild? So, the 8th heroine, if you're not familiar with what that is, in Breath of the Wild, in the Gerudo Desert, there are 7 statues depicting famous warriors that saved Hyrule. But if you look at the texts on these statues, they actually say sages. They are part of the 7 sages. And there's actually an 8th statue that's hidden on the other side of the desert, in the highlands. So, the implication here is that there is an 8th sage. An 8th hidden sage. And, I mean, I love the idea. I think it's cool, right? Here's just an image of the heroines, by the way, so you can see that. So, basically, the whole implication here is that this Bunny Zonai, is what I call her, is the 8th heroine, the 8th sage. And we talk about this green energy that's being showed on the logo for the sword. That looks, I mean, I think that there's going to be something done to the sword that's clearly not just a normal Master Sword. Why would they bother showing a blade that's energy form in the runes that look Zonai-like if they're not going to use it in some way? Let's also point out that they had energy swords in Breath of the Wild. So, and they were really cool. The Guardian swords, let's go another level here. Let's have a Zonai sword. And it's going to be almost like a lightsaber. And I think that's going to be kind of epic. And what's also interesting about this is that Link is still right-handed. I don't think they've changed that. Well, we haven't seen Link use a sword yet, have we? He's right-handed. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure he's still right-handed in Tears of the Kingdom. Yes, he is. I'll confirm that right now. So, check this image out right here. This pretty much confirms he's still right-handed despite the injury. So, here you see his wrecked hand. He's holding the corroded Master Sword. I mean, could he just be using his not-so-dominant hand? Maybe he needs to use the rune to power up the sword. But I'm going to assume that he still uses his hand to fight with the sword. Because we even see a shot with the dragon head shield. We see this shot right here that shows that Link is using his non-sword hand as his left hand still. Like, that's still a thing. Yeah. So, yeah, Link is still right-handed. So, you look here, you'll see the Zonai dragon shield. You'll see the sword right here. It's angled right, so it will be pulled from the right, and Link still has his right hand. So, yeah, Link is still right-handed. He still fights uses his sword with the right hand. That hasn't changed. But anyways, the point is, you see the sword glowing here. You see this green, this thing. Clearly, there's something going on with the Master Sword. And I believe there's going to be an effort to restore the sword. But this hand has all sorts of powers, as we've seen already from the trailers. This appears to be the replacement for the runes from the Sheikah Slate. And if we look at some concept art, let's see here. Do I have Breath of the Wild concept art on hand? I think I do. I know I'm just going through like different images here for you. Like, should just say this for a video. But anyway, they're gonna use this, I think. They're gonna use his hand. They're gonna use these powers, and we're gonna see the Master Sword be like a lightsaber, and it's gonna look freaking cool. We've seen concept art from. Oh, this is what I was looking for, but I found on the internet, not on my computer, which I know I have it saved somewhere, but whatever. It's fine. I don't care, Microsoft Edge. Or Bing. I don't normally use this, it's just auto because I saw it on the search. But this is the image I was trying to pull up. See, there was initial concept art that Link's hand was wrecked. And here it looks like this weird thing, but it can transform into a hammer, a hookshot, the beetle, the bomb, the bow. Obviously, it's not exactly the same, but here you'll see the Master Sword is also halved. So it looks like they're taking some ideas here, and there's going to be like this green-like energy thing. So what if, since Link is still right-handed in this game, the green-like energy thing comes through the sword as we've seen with the logo, and it's going to be a lightsaber. But what if it goes a step further? Because Ganondorf seems stronger than he ever has been, right? He destroyed the Master Sword. It was corroded. The Master Sword is supposed to be the ultimate answer against Ganondorf. And if the Master Sword was just straight up destroyed and it just did not stand a chance against his thick, dense malice, they need to do something about that. So seeing the 7 Sages to just restore the Master Sword back to its former glory, probably not enough. They might have to oomph it a little bit. And when we see this energy blade here, that suggested to do something a little different this time around. So with Link having this magical power hand, and we've seen concepts art of in the past how they had this special hand that had different powers, manipulating and shape-shifting. And we see that maybe there's evidence that they're going to rely on the sages to restore the sword, and we see maybe the Zonai runes and maybe the A sages a Zonai, and they need more power. With the Master Sword, it seems like we're going to go in the direction of strengthening the Master Sword, but maybe strengthen it beyond just what the Master Sword is. I know it took a while to get to this point, but I think it's a really cool idea. If nothing else, just so we can have an awesome energy sword. Like we were talking about earlier, how it'd be really cool if there were some futuristic elements in a Zelda game. Well, the guards and things like that are futuristic, but this straight up lightsaber, basically, that'll be cool. What if it's more than just an energy sword? What if it actually has powers, abilities that are offensively useful, right? Like, we've seen Link have powers with the hand, but what if it goes beyond just an energy sword? Like, what if, like, it can shoot beams of energy? Like, in some Zelda games, if you flick your sword, you can flick energy. Actually, I think you can do that in, you can still do that in Breath of the Wild, I'm sure, with the DLC, I think. Yeah, you can. But what if you can do it more consistently? And what if it has like different like techniques? Like, so for example, in Twilight Princess, there were different attacks that expanded upon your moveset. What if there were different attacks that were based off this new powerful energy sword that we expand upon in Breath of the Wild, improving upon the combat, giving us more combat options, but also suggesting a stronger, more powerful version of the Master Sword that can do some cool things. Now, I'll also say I feel like the Master Sword probably will be fixed by the end of the game. Maybe, or maybe not. Maybe it's going to be a plot point. But maybe there's still things that are done to the Master Sword that make it special. Like maybe there's still this energy still is a part of the Master Sword afterwards, and it's something that becomes even stronger. I think something like this would be a great way to, one, expand upon the gameplay from a combat perspective, but also it'll be a cool quest to power up the Master Sword beyond just what it has been done in previous Zelda games, and also show how much stronger this Ganondorf is in this game, upping the stakes and making it cooler. So that's pretty much the idea. That's kind of my speculation there, that they would give us more attacks that would be evolved off using the Master Sword that have this like green-like energy to it. Now to come back to the chat and see what you guys make of this. Okay. Alright. Nintendo Prime. What's up, buddy? They'll make Link's power over 9,000. That's how he wins. Maybe. I disagree. It'll be over 10,000. I think in the original dub it was 8,000, but that's not fun. Paul Dunn. Reforge the Master Sword with the tears instead of the sacred flames. Yeah. Felipe E. He is always left-handed, not in Breath of the Wild. Not so. It will be the biggest troll ever if the Zonair is still a complete mystery in Tears of the Kingdom. Yeah. It's worth noting that what we're seeing could be an entirely other culture that's just similar, but I think it's probably the Zonai. Big Man. Nintendo might be trying to tie in all the past Zelda games into Tears of the Kingdom for the sake of moving forward with the series. Yeah, to one game to bind them all. You know, I mean, I feel like they've done that to somewhat of an extent with Breath of the Wild already, being so far into the future and not really connecting it directly to any specific game. So, you know, I do see that. Now, to runes for the hand that change the element of the Master Sword would be cool. Make it fire or ice or electric. That's interesting. We have the bow that does that already, but if they were to do that with the sword, that might be interesting too. Like, we have fire swords, we have electric and ice swords already in Breath of the Wild. I imagine they're going to return in some way. But if you can put that on the Master Sword itself, that would be interesting. Zach still with ASMR. In that mural, drawings of that god or something, what do you think it is? Is it a goddess or an enemy? Well, I refer to it as the bunny Zonai, because it looks like a bunny Zonai. And I think that it's an ancient Zonai. Some people have speculated it's Midna. I don't think it's Midna, although it could be Midna, or some descendant or ancestor of Midna, like some sort of priestess or powerful person within the tribe of the Zonai. And if the Zonai are like a pre-Twilight, like the theory is that the Zonai become the Twilight and Twilight Princess. They're the same magical tribe, but they only become the Twilight in the Twilight Realm after being there for such a long time. So the Zonai, they're the original source. Like that's who they were as Hylians, or when they were living in Hyrule. I feel like this character is simply like a powerful person, a sage of this people. The same way Zelda is a sage of the Hylians, or like the Darunia line is up for the Gorons, or the Rutos up for the Zora and stuff. Like that's what I kind of think that they each are. Yeah, there's like a sage. And so I think this person is the sage, an important person of the Zonai tribe. Maybe a priestess of those people. And now there's been speculation that the Zonai people are maybe not all good. Because it's possible that the Zonai built that entire structure in Breath of the Wild, or rather in the sequel trailer where we see Link and Zelda exploring underground. It's possible the Zonai built all that stuff not to contain Ganondorf, but to support Ganondorf. He's been mummified. Being mummified is actually not a bad thing. If something's been mummified, that means someone after your death has done something to preserve you. So it's arguable that whoever put Ganondorf there didn't necessarily do it to contain him, but did it to support him. And you're right, Javier, the barbarian armor suggests the Zonai may have been evil. I mean, it has horns, it has a skull, it has the red hair similar to Ganondorf. Could be the case that the Zonai aren't all good. Now, my opinion is this. I think that maybe the Zonai thought Ganondorf was like a god, and they supported and believed in him, but he ultimately betrayed them. Kind of like how he handled the Twilight. Like, Zant worshipped Ganondorf as a god, and he wanted to use his power to support his people and lead them, and it ultimately turned out that, you know, Ganondorf was a false god, and he betrayed Zant. There could be a similar vibe there. And also with the Twilight, the story of the Twilight is that they were usurpers, magic users that wanted to take advantage of the Triforce. And the goddesses sent them to the Twilight Realm because of this. So, think about this for a moment. The Zonai are suggested to be evil, to have supported Ganondorf potentially. And they were a magical tribe that disappeared suddenly. The Twilight were depicted as usurpers. They were trying to take the power of the Triforce, maybe not being so good themselves either, kind of evil. They were magic users that were suddenly sent off. Very similar. Now let's think about this for a second. What if the reason why the original people that became the Twilight, the usurpers, were trying to make a claim towards the Triforce was because they were being used by Ganondorf to get it? So, remember how I talked about how the Twilight are the Twilight because they've been in the Twilight Realm. They weren't the Twilight before the Twilight Realm. What if the Zonai are the same people before the Twilight Realm? And what if the Zonai people, magic users, supported and believed in Ganondorf, and Ganondorf used them to get to the Triforce, hence why the gods thought that these magic-using people, the Zonai, were usurpers trying to make a claim towards the Triforce because they were, but they were being used by Ganondorf, and they were cast off to another realm and then became the Twilight. It makes sense, right? Just a theory. I don't know if we'll ever see something like this confirmed. It's just some connections, but it's kind of like a fun thought process. Like, it's fun that this kind of connects. Charles Trogel. Ganondorf is a manipulative genius. I could see that. Having Hope 5. I still think Twilight is Zonai. So you guys are supporting my idea here. Javier Vasquez. The mural from the first trailer shows Ganondorf leading troops into battle. Could these troops be Zonai? The interesting thing about that, right, is that the Gerudo, not a fan of Ganondorf. Like, they are very ashamed that he is part of their history. So, it is interesting to consider that maybe, you know, that he didn't have the Gerudo to rely on to be his army. Maybe he had to find someone else. Maybe it wasn't just Bokoblins. Maybe it was a Zonai. Could be. Wink Demano 7 Atomy. Do you think we'll be seeing Skyloft ruins in the sky? Maybe an abandoned academy. I love the idea. One moment here. Let me check something. Because I'm gonna bring in Sammy. As a member, he scheduled a call-in segment for this time. see here. Yeah. So I think it makes sense that we do see some Skyloft ruins in Tears of the Kingdom. Because if we're going to be exploring the sky, and it's going to be massive, if this is a sequel to Breath of the Wild and they keep with that same idea, they had all sorts of references towards previous Zelda games. And there should still be some things in the sky. So I don't see why they wouldn't have some references to either A, Skyloft and the surrounding islands from Skyward Sword, or so maybe it could be both, the city in the sky from Twilight Princess. I don't see why they shouldn't show us some evidence of those things. And here's another interesting connection with Twilight Princess and potentially Tears of the Kingdom. In Tears of the Kingdom, we've seen different motifs that seem to show an emphasis on an egg-like shape. We've seen it near some of the ruins. We've seen it on the Armos green thing. We've seen the dragons. Maybe they're dragon eggs, maybe. In the city in the sky in Twilight Princess, well, the Oka, they have egg-like pods. Their heads are egg-shaped. They look like chickens. But a lot of the structures are egg-shaped as well. Also, the final boss is the dragon for that dungeon. So there is an interesting sort of like similarity there with the egg motif from the city in the sky and the eggs we see in Tears of the Kingdom. The egg is either alluding to a dragon or a bird of some sort, or maybe both. And it's just interesting that we're seeing that motif throughout. All right, looks like Sammy is ready, so I'm gonna call him in here, and he's gonna join in for the call-in segment. Sammy, let me know if you can hear me. I can't hear anything yet.
Is the sound all good?
Yep, I can hear you. Let me see if I believe everyone else can hear you too. Yeah, they can. We're good.
Chat about the Attack on Titan. I saw that. I'm like, part 4? Really?
Well, like, yeah, so, like, what is it? They had final season, and then they're like, oh, we're gonna do a part 2. Okay, alright, they're gonna divide the final season into 2 parts. Whatever, no biggie. But then, I didn't even watch part 2, because I was just gonna wait till it was done and then binge it, and then I saw that they were having a part 3. I was like, oh, okay. And now they're gonna do 2 different halves to part 3.
Yeah, I mean, you can guess, since you read the manga, I mean, you could guess what happened in part 2.
Probably. I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who's watching, though. So,
yeah, it's pretty good, but I mean, I'm sure it'll be good. But
yeah,
they're really, really trying to drag on and maybe just how overworked the map is. So
yeah,
they're doing like a million things,
spreading out the workload. Yeah, I get that. Oh, there's a super chat I missed from Brian Doe. Looks like. So let me get to that real quick here. Again, Brian, if you're still there, thank you for the super chat. Brian says, Eiji Numa, executive producer, Skyward Sword, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, Eiji Numa has been the executive producer for... I mean, I know was he just a director for Wind Waker and Twilight Princess? I know he was the leadership role for... It was the lead role for pretty much all those games, but... Yeah, Eiji Numa is basically the person who directs all of Zelda right now. But there are directors that are under Eiji Numa that direct Zelda too. Yeah, so was there a particular topic that you want to get to? You just want to kind of touch on what we're talking about tonight?
There's a couple things, yeah. First off, the pretty much Tears of the Kingdom and like, how Nate the Hate talked today about the new Switch, and Nikkei reported on it as well. They're kind of saying, they're both saying 2024.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what I'm starting to believe now.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they said they have time to release something this year, but...
They could, but I guess it is one of those things where if we're seeing that, if it is the case that Nintendo is really focused on producing as many Switches as possible this year. You know, and if they're not using Tears of the Kingdom as a game to launch with a new system, then I feel like that means, you know, you could take that to mean that maybe it's not that close, right?
Yeah, if it was this year, maybe they would have
waited, or
you know, tried to either waited or tried to get the Switch out by now.
Right. You could make that argument. Now, you know, for me, I think it's a little disappointing if this is true, because then I think that means that we don't have a new Mario game for a while. But on the same token, though, right? Like, they haven't announced the Mario Odyssey 2 for a reason, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it could be the case that there is no Mario Odyssey 2 because they've been planning for a while that this next Mario game is further next generation, like just straight up. And maybe that comes out.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Because with the exception of like Galaxy and Galaxy 2, they usually only have one big 3D Mario per console. So,
yeah. And you know,
like Sunshine was.
Go on.
Like Sunshine was GameCube only. Mario Galaxy 2, that was obviously 2-on-1, but 3D World launched on Wii U. Odyssey, you know, there's kind of a pattern there, and they usually come out around the beginning of the life cycle, don't they? With the exception for Galaxy 2, obviously. Like 3D World was 1 year after Wii U came out. Odyssey was launch year, I believe. So there's like that's not saying, I mean, a new 3D Mario won't still launch on Switch, but I think it'll target the next gen.
I don't know. So I guess if they're waiting until the end of 2024, that's so far down the road. I mean, it's not that far from now, right? But it's far enough down the road. Let's say it's holiday 2024, that we're at a point where maybe they just, I don't want to say they cut it cold turkey, but they might. Like, they might just make the Mario game a straight up exclusive for the next system.
Yeah, if it's that late. Yeah, that is.
And that's
if
kind of like, I don't know.
If they wait till late 2024 to launch something new, like, I could see them doing it for sure, because, you know, I know Furukawa's mindset. But, like, if the Switch is going to have to go through all of 2024 on its own, that would be tough.
Yeah. And that's another challenge. And that's why I feel like this is tough, right? Because I have a hard time thinking that they can just go all the way till the end of 2024. That's almost 2 years from now. That's like 1 year and 10 months from now. That feels like a long time without any other significant releases. And it's a lot. It's a lot. But, you know, maybe they don't wait that long. Maybe they come out like mid 2024. So we're actually, you know, maybe only 1 year and a few months away.
Yeah, I will bring something up. Do you know Nikkei? It's like a Japanese article.
Yeah.
They're like kind of like Bloomberg, but for Japan.
Right.
So they say that the next system is like production is in negotiation with, you know, whoever the chipset's going to be with. It's probably NVIDIA. And probably Samsung for the screens, I'd imagine.
Mm-hmm.
But it's in production negotiations, and it's going to be out by mid 2024. They said Q2, so by the end of June.
That's when is that what's said in the report?
Yeah, that's what Nikkei said.
I mean, I think, I think it's an awkward timing for
Right.
releases, but
Right, because summer's usually, I mean, Nintendo's where their big games come out and, big, huge stuff is March and, October and November. So if it was to come out,
yeah,
May or June, that'd be crazy.
I think.
But then again, Tears of the Kingdom's in May. So.
Right. I think what Nintendo has shown this generation is that they can be successful pretty much at any point in the year. Like, they launched with the Switch and Breath of the Wild in March, does well. They have games coming out during the holidays, but it's not always their major releases. And we've seen major games come out during the summer, and Tears of the Kingdom's coming out in May. So it's almost like they're okay with pushing something pretty much any point at the year. So, if summer 2024 is what they're going to do,
you know what? It'll probably still sell.
It'll probably still sell, exactly.
Because although March is their end of the year, I mean, Q1, that's usually a pretty slow year for games. Because everyone just bought a bunch of stuff for the holidays, and
I feel like what they
I mean, not
do
this year. I mean, January's packed with stuff, but there's 4 or 5 huge releases this month. There's, the Persona ports, Fire Emblem Engage, Dead Space. I think that's it. But yeah, it's irregular, the amount of releases that we're getting in the beginning of the year.
Yeah. The other thing to consider, though, is that we haven't had a price drop yet for Switch, right? So
yeah, it's a big thing. Like you were saying before, I don't think they're going to make their next console above $400. I think that's a no-no. Because then they would be competing with PlayStation and Xbox. They don't want to do that. So I think maybe near the holidays, there's a pretty chunky size or a pretty chunky price drop. Maybe.
Yeah.
And maybe it's you remember near the end of the 3DS's life how cheap that was?
Yeah.
I mean, they were bundling it with Mario Kart 7 for $99. So they still have a ways to get there. I mean, if they really want to, they could extend the Switch's life.
Yeah, they haven't even done the price drop yet. Excuse me about this.
It's still selling. I mean, it's dropping off, but it's still selling. 20 million this year.
Yeah. I've just been on the verge of sneezing this whole time. I feel like once I give up on trying to hold it back or be prepared for it, that's when I'm gonna sneeze. Anyway.
Yeah, and
I think that I can almost see I feel like the Switch has to drop in price before the next system comes out, because I think there needs to be that perceived difference in value, Because let's say they come out with Switch 2 and it's $400 and Switch OLED is $350. That's just not gonna work, So I can see Nintendo really pushing OLED, coming out of the Tears of the Kingdom OLED, and maybe they do price drop it by the end of the holiday. Although I wouldn't be surprised if they can meet. Depends on it. I think it depends on if Nintendo thinks they can meet demand, or if they can kind of stay at a healthy balance, really. Because if it's a situation where supply is outweighing demand, then that means there's not enough people that want the Switch for its price. So then they gotta drop the price, right? But if they can continue to sell at a healthy level throughout the year without having to do it, then they shouldn't do it. But I think maybe their goal is to get out as many Switches as they can, and just try and maximize the amount of sales that they can get before they announce their next system. And if for whatever reason it looks like they're not able to sell out their supply or get close, that's when they do the price drop, so they can get close to selling out, and they keep that price. Or B, let's say if hypothetically it matches, early next year when they announce the next system, they also announce the price drop. And that way they can continue to sell, even though people know the new system is coming. When they see the Switch and its entire library and they see it can get it at a cheaper price, they're like, oh, this is a good deal. Let me go for it anyway. And thus they maintain momentum, even though we know there's a new system coming, like publicly out in the open, like it's already announced for those few months as they lead up to marketing it. And then that system comes out. And when that system comes out, maybe it's at a price that's comparable to what the Switch was when it launched. But because of the price drop, that perceived value is not, like, the difference in pricing is fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah, and I really don't think, I'm surprised they priced the OLED at $350. I thought, like, before the OLED was announced, when we thought there was going to be a Pro coming out, I thought there was going to be another revision, and I thought there was going to be a price drop of the Switch, and the revisions maybe 300 or something, but the OLED came out, and it was a minor improvement. It was $350. But the thing is, I don't know if they want to touch 400 at all. Like you said, I think maybe it's not going to be 300 like the Switch was when it comes out because of inflation, but maybe like 350. I don't know if they want to leave the 300s when it comes to hardware.
I do not know.
They want to make things affordable.
Yeah, I don't know. We just don't know. We don't know how Nintendo's gonna go about handling this whole business.
It just so little information right now.
Yeah, we just don't. But was there anything else you wanted to talk about? Oh, we can continue down this. We can continue down this train of thought too. It's just, is there any other angles you want to kind of go at it from?
How do you think they'll handle? I mean, there's no doubt I think for sure it'll have backwards compatibility. But how do you think they'll handle the upgrades? Like, is it going to be $10 a game or something, like something PlayStation's doing, or is it going to be like an Xbox approach where you just have everything?
Well,
I mean, you own your PS4 games on PS5, but if you want the PS5 version of it, you have to pay like $10 or $20 to upgrade.
Yeah.
Like Ghost of Tsushima.
So, my train of thought has been that if the new Switch is coming out in 2023, they will be more having like a lot of like cross-platform releases. But with it now seeming more like a 2024 release, that's 1 year removed, right? It's 1 more year. It's 1 more year of Switch being out there and more time of people having that and being more and more ready to move on. I'm almost prepared for them to just not like do that. Like I almost am thinking that they might they'll make the system backwards compatible and games will look and run somewhat the same, but most games won't see any sort of substantial improvement on the next system. I think they might just look at it as more of a traditional jump. Like, they won't do anything weird. Because they're waiting so long to move on to their next system, they may not feel like they need to go through extra lengths to really smooth over that transition.
Yeah, I think by the time it comes out, everybody's going to be ready for the next system, because it's looking like a 7-year lifespan now, and we haven't seen that for a home console since the NES.
Right. And
I mean, this technically isn't a home console, but I mean it is. It's both.
Yeah.
I mean, even 7 years for a handheld is like tops, excluding the Game Boy. but that had the Game Boy Color going for it. So they really had a mid-gen refresh. More than that.
Yeah. There's just so much that could or could not happen, you know? It's tough. It's tough. And I mean, I guess I can see the argument with why. Oh, my cat's coughing. Are you okay? You okay? Got a hairball? You alright? It's okay. You're okay. Alright.
You know why I think we've been predicting 2023 for Switch 2?
We want it?
Because we really want it.
Yeah.
And that's why we had hope it was coming out with Zelda. Yeah.
Tears of the Kingdom, and also you look at sales. Sales have been trending downwards. And in the past, when the sales have trended downwards, they've announced a new system. So sales have been trending downwards. It's late into the system's life cycle. Tears of the Kingdom is usually launched alongside new systems. There's all these reasons to think why they could have, but they haven't.
Yeah, I mean,
it still might, right? Like, I think, something to consider is that we gotta take everything with a grain of salt. Just because there's different people saying that that it's not gonna happen this year, doesn't mean it's not gonna happen this year, right? It's what Nintendo decides to do. It's what they're ready to do. It's what information they've revealed. That all said, I don't feel like it's happening this year right now. Tears of the Kingdom. I'll be more confident in saying this once the February Direct comes around, because I think once the February Direct comes around, there's no mention of new hardware. Or rather, once they confirm the Tears of the Kingdom OLED, that to me kind of is like, all right, we're good. But then on the flip side, though, let's say we get a February Direct, and then they announce the next 3D Mario to come out this holiday. If they do that, then I'm gonna be like, okay, well maybe there is still something coming out for this. So hypothetically speaking, let's say midway through February we get a Nintendo Direct. They talk about Tears of the Kingdom. They maybe announce a Tears of the Kingdom OLED. So great, but they also tease a 3D Mario, which I wouldn't expect them to do till E3, just for the record. But let's say they did, then I'd be like, oh, okay. They tease 3D Mario and they say it's coming out at the end of the year. If they were to do that without even saying there's a system, I'll believe there's a system coming. Because I think, in my mind, there's no way they have both Tears of the Kingdom and a 3D Mario come out in the same year without a new system. But maybe they don't have 3D Mario this year, which is why they save it for a year afterwards.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. I'm thinking, there's practically 0% chance it's coming out with Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, they would have to announce the new system like next week for it to come out with Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if they skip out on that and 3D Mario for launch titles, I mean, that's their two heaviest hitters. Because, I mean, they got Metroid Prime 4, but it's not going to push systems.
No,
it's going to sell well.
Yeah, but it's not the kind of big thing that you need to push hardware, right? It's a good showcase for hardware to show what it's capable of, and it can excite people for that. But it's not something that's going to yield, a large number of people buying the system. That's not what it's going to do. Now, I'll also say, when I'm thinking on Metroid Prime 4, I believe that Metroid Prime 4 is going to be cross-generation. And my thought process has been that Prime 4 is not coming out till holiday 2024. That's been my thought process. So...
yeah, I think they're taking their time on that game.
Yeah, and actually, when you think about that, I think it kind of works for our timeline. Because let's say Switch 2 comes out summerish or early, spring to summer 2024. That launches with Mario, and they launch with Mario and have other things, but Prime 4 comes out for the holiday of 2024 to kind of boost the holiday a little bit, but they still have Mario, and maybe by that point they finish the DLC for Tears of the Kingdom. They have an update for that for the new system, and they can push everything for holiday 2024, and that would work. Like, I think Metroid Prime 4 is a good complementary title for a new system, but not by itself. So, like, if I think I could see it being a great system to put out for the holiday, really showcase what it's capable of, and maybe it's something that they reveal alongside the new system as well too. But I'll also say that I believe Prime 4 is gonna be a cross-generation game. I don't think they're gonna not make it for Switch, but I also think it's gonna be something that'll look and run great on the next system too. So maybe there is still reason to have to think that there's gonna be some cross-gen games, at least with Prime 4. Like that's one that I think kind of has to be, because they announced it for Switch, so that's part of the problem.
Yeah, I think cross-gen will be a thing until maybe through 2025. And of course, there may be some exclusive games, select ones. But yeah, I think there will be, because why would they alienate by the time the system comes out 140, 150 million people?
Yeah. Sorry, my brother was shouting at the dog to stop barking, so I got distracted. I don't know if you could even hear that, but
no, I didn't.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
I just hope. Wait, what were you saying?
No, go.
Yeah, just my mind is kind of a little bit being distracted from hardware right now, because we're 3.5 months away from Tears of the Kingdom. It's very exciting. Well, not quite 3.5.
Oh, we're close.
3 months and 3 weeks.
Yeah, close.
But we're within reaching distance here, and there's still no marketing for the game, really. We got 3 teaser trailers, pretty much.
People are freaking out. Like, people are like, where's our information? Like, every day that goes, and people are like, why? We're so close, yet nothing. Like, Fire Emblem Engage had a better marketing campaign, you could argue. But I think that what's going to happen is that once they start, it's going to be thick. It's going to be dense with Zelda news leading up to its release. So it'll be fine.
Yeah, I think
they don't need that much time to market the game.
I think maybe they have a nice big trailer in a February Direct, and I think probably, either a Zelda Direct or a Treehouse, or both. Probably both, actually. I think a Zelda Direct could outline gameplay and stuff, and just mechanics and what the game's about. I think the Treehouse would be for gameplay. I think that would be enough to push it over. People are going to buy it anyway. It's going to have a great start anyway. But I just wonder why they've been so quiet for so long.
I wish I could tell you. Right? Like, a lot of people speculate the reason Nintendo's being so quiet about Tears of the Kingdom was because it was tied to new hardware. But as we've been discussing throughout tonight, that's seeming less and less likely, right? So what's the deal? Why are they being so quiet? Is it just because? People will say that Nintendo's actually done this for a lot of games lately. That they don't really talk about them until they're about to come out. But I also think that if you look at how they've been with most of their games, they talk about them more than they've talked about Tears of the Kingdom, and with more time to spare. Yes, they've had shorter intervals, that is true, but I do think with Tears of the Kingdom they've been more quiet, and they've waited even more before they start really talking about it. Like, they are being extra patient, extra close to the chest with this game than all their other games. For example, Yes, Fire Emblem Engage was announced officially this September. But since its announcement, they've talked about it consistently leading up to its release tomorrow. Like, it's been a consistent media blowout or campaign since September. That's a 4-month
they had
window.
multiple trailers in the States, and then they had even more in Japan that haven't been translated.
There's a whole bunch of content out there for Fire Emblem Engage. 4 months of consistent information on that game being delivered. And yes, Tears of the Kingdom was announced years ago at this point, but we're now less than 4 months away. Smaller window than Fire Emblem, and Nintendo still hasn't kicked into their full-on media blowout for, Tears of the Kingdom. Like, they still haven't done it, and they were less than 4 months away. You look at Xenoblade Chronicles 3 last year. It was rumored, but they announced it in February, and it came out in July. Short window. That's, a 5-month window? Big game. It had its own dedicated direct, several trailers. There is news about it with some fair frequency from its announcement to release. Splatoon 3.
Yeah.
We knew about that game for a while, but its first trailer, I think, told us more about Splatoon 3 than what the total sum of the trailers we've gone for Tears of the Kingdom have told us about Tears of the Kingdom. And they gave us a lot more information about that game leading up to its release. It's just they've been more quiet about Tears of the Kingdom, I think, and I don't know why. My hope is, my pipe dream hope is that it's because it's for new hardware, but I don't believe that at this point.
It's saddening because I would love Tears of the Kingdom and DLSS 60 FPS. That'd be great.
Yeah, but what I think it actually is part of their strategy, actually. I think they know that of all the games out there, this is the game that people know they want to get before even saying anything about it. So I feel that maybe part of their marketing strategy is to not talk about it. Let us do the talking. Let us do the marketing. It's cheaper. And once it gets close, then it's like this full-on sprint leading on to the release of the game with marketing. And we're going to learn a lot about this game. But
I agree with you there.
But it's going to be a short, dense interval. And I'm optimistic that this game is going to be very impressive in terms of content, concepts, what they're doing with this game. I'm thinking it's going to be really, really impressive. And maybe it is.
I think it's going to be the best Zelda. Because
sure,
I think it's going to be. Maybe it won't be the best. Because looking back on it, Ocarina of Time will probably. By today's standards, there's better gameplay and stuff, but the impact that game had. But Tears of the Kingdom. I remember I started watching you in 2020. I remember you were speculating late 2020 release for it. It's just a sequel. They only had a year and a half to work on Majora's Mask. Here we are.
6 years later.
6 years. The same engine. The same map. I think they've really been. I think it's just going to be mind blowing when they reveal it, because they've had 6 years to work on a game with the same engine. So the engine takes what? A year to 2 years. And it took even longer for Breath of the Wild, because that was a lot of its struggles. That game was supposed to be developed and released in 4 years, in 2015. But yeah, I think Tears of the Kingdom, I think the sky is going to be huge.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it at first because there's a bunch of islands scattered apart, but
and there's
I think it's going to go up and
stuff
up.
and camera angles, and they may have not even added everything yet. Like, there's a lot of things to suggest that they're not showing everything there is, like, for sure.
And I have a theory on how the Master Sword breaks.
Okay.
I just kind of thought about it.
You think it's more than just the malice from Ganondorf corroding it during battle?
Oh, that's what I was gonna say. I think you fight him in the beginning. I think you start the game in the cave.
Okay.
And I think you fight him in the beginning of the game.
Okay.
And he just kicks your ass. I mean,
do you think like actual gameplay?
Yeah, like a boss fight. Because it's still in question if that is Ganondorf, but I'm hoping so. Haven't seen him in a while, but
I'm pretty sure it's Ganondorf because I mean it's a Gerudo. It has Gerudo. He has wearing Gerudo clothing. It's got Gerudo jewelry. It's got the yellow jewel on his head. It's trademark for every Ganondorf iteration of Ganondorf. There's only been 2 Ganondorf technically that we've seen in games. There's even something going on in this chest, although maybe it's separate from what happened in Twilight Princess. It even has like the Ganon theme. So, and it's very clear the source of Calamity Ganon. So you know, it's Ganondorf.
Yeah, this is the top guy. I mean, yeah, and I think he probably beats you, and you know, maybe he absorbs the Master Sword or something, and turns into his full form.
Well, you know,
and you gotta collect the 7 tears.
Well, actually, interestingly, Melfi Sky provides an interesting perspective here, or a theory that they're asking about. What do you think of the theory that with the Master Sword seemingly being broken, Demise will return? So, while I don't think that Demise is going to return, I'll entertain the idea, because it's not crazy. There is this silhouette or shadow that's shown very briefly in the first trailer of a more like muscular, top-heavy version of what this mummy is. And I just assumed that that's just like how Ganondorf looked before his death and becoming the mummy. But it also does share a bit of a resemblance to Demise. Now, also I think Demise and Ganondorf intentionally share a resemblance because it's the recurring spirit, right? Spirit of hate.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
also,
they're essentially the same. The same being. He's just a reincarnation.
Yeah. So there's that, but it is also the case that the Master Sword housed Demise. Like Demise is sealed inside the Master Sword. And Fi, we actually hear Fi's voice in Breath of the Wild. So if you want to make any arguments, you could argue that Skyward Sword is the first game of the trilogy. Skyward Sword, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. Because there seems to be some story elements trickling from that game into this one. And Fi is the voice of the sword. So what's interesting is that Zelda says she can't hear.
There's a memory in Breath of the Wild where, you know, the one where Link almost dies. Like the Master Sword flashes, right? Yeah. Flashes blue.
Yeah.
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 Oh my God.
Hear her voice.
What if Fi returns and she tells you how to do everything again?
I don't know.
That won't ever happen.
I doubt that. I really do. But, you know.
No, I think this game's going to continue with like the freedom it gives you.
Yeah.
But I think you'll still be able to do dungeons in any order.
I think the game's going to be mostly open. I think it needs to share that with Breath of the Wild, and I think that's the direction most Zeldas are going to go moving forward. But, you know, with this idea of Demise, right, like if the sword is broken, you know, could it be possible that Demise comes out of it? Now, the idea is that Demise is slowly eroded away over time, so Demise wouldn't really be around anymore. But, you know, retcons, plot holes. If the sword breaks, could there be something that was in it that Ganondorf latches on to, or that spirit of hatred that's using this corpse of Ganondorf? Like, what if it's Demise, the spirit of hatred, using this corpse of Ganondorf, right? Like, so it's like Ganondorf but Demise at the same time, which would be weird, but, well, you know, maybe not a total stretch.
So it would certainly be cool.
Yeah, I mean, I believe, yes. So I'll say this. I think that corpse is not Demise. That corpse is a body of Ganondorf. But could the spirit of Demise be using that corpse of Ganondorf? Maybe.
It would
Although
be
I
cool
think
if you
that
could
it's
fight
just Ganondorf.
like similar to like Xenoblade Chronicles, where you really have multiple villains. I'm not going to say anything specific, but
Yeah.
like you get through the guys and then you fight Ganondorf or whatever. And I want to see more of that, like more.
Well, what's interesting about that is that people have speculated that what if this game is where they finally end the cycle, and the cycle is set by Demise and his spirit of hatred. So, in order to end the cycle, maybe it has something to do with going beyond, which is Ganondorf, and maybe Demise. So, I mean, there's some reason there for sure.
In September, when the title was revealed and stuff, I was watching these theory videos that it's a big time loop. Like the islands in the sky, so the end leads to the beginning. It's kind of hard to wrap my head around, but like those sky islands give birth to Skyloft and all that. But I don't think that's going to be a thing. But it would be interesting.
Would be interesting. There is a bit of a story before Skyward Sword. There was a war that happened on the surface, and that surface... What are you doing? She just laid down. Like on the computer and pulled back the cord of the camera that tilted upwards.
Oh God.
It's funny. It's fine. Anyway,
make sure he pays for it.
She's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a story, right? There's a story that takes place before the events of Skyward Sword, leading up to the event of that. And there's a war, and then there's this warrior that looks like Link with a scarf, and there's this goddess, and it's a battle against Demise and the demons, and Link dies. And then I think that's what sets into motion the spirit of the hero that was resurrected. The goddess, was fighting with Link at that time. And
oh, and is that why Hylia turned into a human, Zelda? To like protect. Yeah, I remember it was in the opening cutscene, right? Well, they kind of explained it.
There's this story of the goddess, yeah, but I don't think the spirit of the hero is mentioned in the Skyward Sword prologue.
Yeah, because is Hylia Zelda in all the games? Is the spirit of Hylia still there?
Yeah, that's the idea. The spirit of Hylia is in Zelda. Although, you could argue each Zelda is its own. It's kind of weird, right? Because, like, they're like reincarnations, but not at the same time, if that makes any sense. Like, Toon Link, Wind Waker Link, he's said to not be the hero, but he's also said to be the new hero. He is the hero of the winds, right? He's not the hero of time, though. And then Link from Breath of the Wild is the hero of the wild. Like, I think the idea is that they're just new heroes, but there's something in them that's like a shared trait. And
that's why they obtain like the Triforce of Courage.
Yeah. Now, I mean, you could also make a similar argument with like is Ganondorf Demise just in a different body, or is it a different person but has that hatred? Like, I don't know, like how to. It's a weird little thing. It's like they share something that makes them the same, but they're also not the same at the same time. Like, they're still their own people.
Yeah.
It's almost more like the roles. Maybe it's more like there are destined roles that continue on cyclically, and each generation it's a new character, but they are kind of, there's certain ancestry or what have you, or some sort of like, even if it's not biological heritage, maybe like spiritual or magical heritage of previous heroes, if that makes any sense. Like there's something in them that they carry that keeps them linked, pun intended or not intended actually, but they're still
like passing on the torch.
Yeah, like they're passing down the torch, but they're not actually the same person.
Yeah.
Like I rather think that the hero of the winds is more like the great grandson or great grandson's cousin or something of like a previous Link. Like there's maybe I guess I don't like using that example because that's saying that it has to be a biological connection. It's not necessarily a biological connection, but there's like some sort of, that's why I said spiritual heritage, whatever that actually means, but there's just something there that has them connected.
They embody the spirit of the hero, even if they're different biological descendant. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I guess, like, depending on how you interpret spirits, like, you can interpret a spirit as an actual individuality, right? Like, I don't just mean it's like a different body. It's a different soul. It's like a different person with a different personality, but there's a part of them that's shared with the previous hero.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Nintendo probably didn't think this out too completely. I don't think it's meant to be this overanalyzed.
No, they kind of just came out. I mean, like with the first, Zelda games up in like Skyward Sword is really where they started thinking about the timeline, because that's when Hyrule Historia came out and stuff. But yeah, they didn't go from the first game, like they didn't make the first Zelda game like, okay guys, this is going to be part of the downfall timeline and we're going to explain it later on. They didn't do that.
Yeah, it was figured out afterwards.
They just kind of pieced it together. Oh, okay, that makes sense.
I like what Natsus has to say here in the chat though. The blood of the goddess, the spirit of the hero, and the hate of Demise. Because the blood of the goddess does seem to be biological. Like there is literally a royal family, right? And then there are Zeldas that are born into that. The Links, on the other hand, seem to come out from randomly different parts of Hyrule out of the woodworks. Oh, I'm the new Link. No, I'm the new Link, right? Like, so there's that. And maybe Link is the same spirit, or I don't know. That again, weird, but. Goddess, it's literally a biological history, and with Demise and Gandalf, it's a hatred, right? And then there are other characters like Vati, Zant that share a similar hatred. So I like that. Yeah, but
I'd love to see Vati return in some future game.
I'm
like maybe imagine a 3D Zelda with. Or even like a Minish Cap remake or something. That's been rumored.
You know what I want? I mean, yeah, bringing back other antagonists is great. Like that's interesting. But what I want is I actually like the idea that maybe they end the cycle, and maybe this next Zelda game is even further into the future. Maybe it takes place in a different land even, and there is a villain, but this villain is not related to Ganondorf at all. And I want it to be just an entirely new character, but is the antagonist. Like, they build it up. I want there to be something new, like, and have this relationship that's built. Maybe you don't even know who the villain is at first. Maybe it's a story where the villain
like
doesn't know
Xenoblade.
Maybe like Xenoblade. Well, okay, so yes, but which one? Because I want. Sometimes games, doesn't happen every Xenoblade game, but sometimes there are games where you don't know the villain until the very end, and I don't like that either. I want there to be a build-up with the villain. I want there to be a connection to the villain. I want us to learn a lot about the villain. That's what I'm getting at here. I want them to build a really interesting, compelling story of the villain, it being a new villain, and what would be an interesting dynamic is if maybe this villain like doesn't even know it's the villain, right? Like, for example,
good example.
Go.
Persona 5 Royale. Have you played that?
I haven't.
Oh,
I'm sure a lot of people in the chat have though, so you can bring it up.
yeah. So there's. Should I say this? Because it's kind of like a plot twist. The villain
Oh,
in
maybe
the
not then.
third.
Maybe
But there's
not.
a certain guy, who you think he's a nice guy, and he is a nice guy. And in the third semester in Persona 5 Royale, he's still a nice guy. He's trying to change the world for good, but he's doing it in a way which takes away the freedom from people. So you have to stop him, but you don't really want to stop him. But like they give you a choice whether to side with him or not. But like a villain with depth and relatability would be very, very interesting in a Zelda game.
Yeah. Like that would be cool. That would be really cool.
Like if I could get behind like, okay, what he's doing is wrong, but I could see why. Like
yeah, like something you can understand.
The closest example is probably Wind Waker Ganondorf. Because you know what he's doing is wrong, but he's got a backstory. And
so hear me out. This is like this is kind of like my idea for like a loose like outline. Imagine a game where there are several events that occur, and maybe you're both knights. Like there's different knights that are working together. One of them is Link, and there's different issues happening throughout Hyrule. There's this complication. So maybe there's more than one evil source, right? And what happens is that as the story builds up together, you know, you have these friends, and one of them is this other character that you're like rivals with, but it's like a friendly rivalry. And at some point or another, maybe midway through the story, events escalate to the point where you turn swords against each other. Because you each make a different decision as to what you're going to do involving this conflict. And there's this battle, and what happens is you lose the battle, but the reason you lose the battle is because this other evil source possesses your friend that already chose his side, and they use the power to beat you, and you're beaten so badly that you're injured significantly. You lose the fight, and what happens is you're incapacitated for a few years. And what's interesting about this is that not only does it build this relationship with a villain that you're actually like friends, there's that emotion there, but also this event gives them more power, makes them more threatening, but also by you losing and being incapacitated, that's like a huge like plot beat, right? It could lead to a significant change in the world afterward, like a second phase to the story. But also it gives that rival of yours time to build up wisdom and experience along with this power that possessed them. Or maybe it's still them, but they kind of use that power, so it's still their decisions, but they use that extra power to beat you. But now what happens is, because you're incapacitated for a long time, that character grows. So they're more wise or more experienced than you. So they have, all of a sudden, you know, like that relationship between Link and Ganondorf, where Ganondorf is clearly older, wiser, more mature than Link. So for those reasons, he should be stronger, not even accounting for his magic. So what happens at first, you're equals. He takes the power, beats you in the fight, incapacitates you. It leads to like a bit of a time skip. But then with that time skip, this rival of yours, or now antagonist, gains that experience. So it feels like there's an even bigger difference between the both of you. And that way, when you finally match up with them at the end, one, it has the emotional beat of at one point being your friend, but also two, the stakes feel high because of how much stronger they should be because of their experience, their maturity, and because of the power that they took advantage of. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, like someone that the perfect villain would be someone you grow up with, someone you're best friends with, and they have a disagreement. Yeah, just like you said. You know, Xenoblade 3, right? N wasn't friends with you at all. but N is I can't talk much about that. There's spoilers there, but I mean, you know how that whole thing plays out, and you just want to kick his ass. I mean, because just a villain where you feel, because Ganondorf's just, oh, I want to destroy the world.
Yeah.
Twilight Princess, I want to make everything the Twilight Realm. Like, he's menacing, he's cool and all, but more depth would just, I would love it. And I think there's a good chance of them doing that in the future, and maybe the next game, or maybe even this game.
Yeah. I do want them to mix it up at some point. But, yeah, Sam, I'm going to move on to my... I'm pretty much about ready to close out. I'm going to talk about something else for a few minutes, but was there anything else you want to mention before we call it a night?
Maybe one thing.
Sure.
Do you think the underground... Wait, no. Scratch that. I'm going to ask you another thing.
Sure.
Twilight Princess versus Ocarina of Time.
Which one's the better game?
Yes.
So I think Ocarina of Time is the far more impressive game for its time. I think considering the install base and how much it sold, even though Twilight Princess is the best-selling Zelda game, it's not best-selling by that much more. Well, Twilight Princess is not the best-selling Zelda game, but for a while it was until Breath of the Wild. So Ocarina of Time held that title for years. Twilight Princess beat it out, but it was also on both the GameCube and the Wii, which sold over 100 million. So the N64 sold like 33 million or something like that. Then Ocarina of Time sold like 7 million copies, so it was like impressive. So from a sales perspective, yes, Twilight Princess beats it, but Ocarina of Time is more impressive for its time from sales and from a gameplay revolution perspective. Like, it changed how we played 3D action adventures moving forward. It introduced Z targeting to a large audience. Oh, there are some other games that may have played around with the idea, but like Z targeting was taken to another level with Ocarina of Time, and it was what made it a standard. And it also really pushed this idea of, oh, you see that in the background, go to it. And it also is what set the formula for every 3D Zelda leading up until Breath of the Wild. So I think Ocarina of Time is a more important game, and it's something that I think I hold with greater esteem across history. That all said, if you were just to play a Zelda game, like, what would be a better game to play? Like, if you never played any Zelda game ever, which one would I recommend? I might recommend Twilight Princess, because Twilight Princess is a newer game that's very epic. It's got a long story with a lot of cool characters, and it's pretty epic. Now, I think Ocarina of Time is better. Twilight Princess has a lot of variety to the events that lead up throughout the story, but I feel like the way they handled the antagonists in Ocarina of Time is better than Twilight Princess. But overall, I think the story is better in Twilight Princess, and the gameplay is better in Twilight Princess, and there's more variety in Twilight Princess. So, like, it's a more fun game overall than Ocarina of Time, because it's newer. It has that advantage of technology and such. So, I'll say historically speaking, Ocarina of Time, hands down. But in terms of like starting a new game today, which one you pick? Ocarina of Time. I mean, no, sorry, Twilight Princess.
Yeah, I have a lot of bias with that game, because Twilight Princess was the first Zelda game I beat. The first I played was Zelda 2, actually.
Okay.
And that was a nightmare.
But
when I
guess
was little.
it's good that you bring that up, right? Because you probably feel, for you personally, I guess I'm assuming you like Twilight Princess more than Ocarina of Time.
I like it more than Ocarina of Time, but objectively, Ocarina of Time is much more impactful. I mean, Twilight Princess was just carrying on the formula.
Right.
That being said, though, it's probably number 2 on my favorite Zelda games.
Okay.
Number 1's probably Breath of the Wild, despite its lack of dungeons and stuff. I didn't hate the Divine Beasts, but it would have been cool if they had like dungeons in there too, like Hyrule Castle.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I'm excited for Tears of the Kingdom, because I think they can improve upon some of the things that Breath of the Wild was lacking, and it can make it pretty impressive.
Yeah. I think that's why they've taken such a long time with it too. I think they're really looking at all their issues. I think they're trying to make this the perfect game, which makes me want to see more of it, that much more.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right, but yeah, is there anything else you want to add, Sammy? Because I'm going to close things out here pretty soon.
No, it's all right. Thanks for having me on.
No, for sure, buddy. It's always fun having you on. So, look forward to having you on in the future. But have a good night.
All right, thank you.
All right,
you too.
Bye. All right, cool. So, we're nearing the end of the stream, guys. If there's anything else you want to talk about with Zelda, you feel free to bring that up. Yes, my cat, Ruby, here. Let me show you to the world, Ruby. This is Ruby. She is my daughter. Say hello, Ruby. Nah, she doesn't want to say hello to anyone. She doesn't even know you guys exist. So. But this is my cat. Now, Ruby, let me ask you a question. How do you feel about Mario Odyssey 2? I'll have you know that Mario Odyssey 1 came out years ago, before you were an idea. Many years ago. She's only a year old. Look up here. Look. There you go. There she is. Alright. So anyway, we touched on Mario a little bit. I just want to kind of like talk about it just a little bit more before I close things out, because I said I would talk about it. Mario, Melfice, she's an Abyssinian. Anyway, what I was gonna say before we close things out, just about Mario. So, like, I do believe that a new Mario game is coming, but I think Nintendo is saving it for new hardware. As Sammy brought up earlier, when we see new Mario games, they come out early on to a system's life cycle. And I don't think they're going to come out with another 3D Mario this late into the game and not have it launched with a new system, right? Like, they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that with what I mean to say, I'm distracted by my cat, but they're not going to release a new system next year and skip both Zelda and 3D Mario. That's not going to happen. I don't believe that for a second. So what's more likely to happen at this point, seems like, is that Tears of the Kingdom is coming out in May. It's going to be the big game for the year. Nintendo's going to hype it up. There'll be other little things to support it throughout. And next year, they'll probably push Mario, and that's going to be like the big game to come out with the system. And there'll be other things, like maybe Metroid Prime 4, for example. And that's the basic plan. That's what I think is going to happen. And I don't know, and I don't think it's going to be called Mario Odyssey 2, right? But I do think it's going to be a follow-up to Mario Odyssey. I think it's going to evolve off of those ideas. And I mean, for now, calling it Mario Odyssey 2 is fine, but it's not going to be actually Mario Odyssey 2. Same way, Tears of the Kingdom is not Breath of the Wild 2, actually even more so. I don't think it's going to be like a direct story follow-up either. I think it's going to be its own thing. And that's just kind of how they typically do it, unless it's the same Mario on the same system. The same way Tears of the Kingdom is the same game on the Switch, also on the Switch as Breath of the Wild. It's a direct sequel. That makes sense, but having a direct sequel on a separate system, and only a separate system, that I don't see happening. So there is that to consider. So, yeah, I would love to see Mario, and I think that they are working on one. But unless there's a new system coming out this year, I don't think we're gonna see it this year. So that's just something else, right? So like, while we're talking about Mario and like there's these rumors, maybe. Now, there is another caveat though. Some people are speculating that what they're gonna do is that they have DLC for Mario Odyssey come out this year. Give us another little expanded story in the 3D Mario world to play this year, to tide us over until next year. Keep people excited, you know, have it marketed alongside the Mario movie. And it's like a teaser for what's to come in the future with 3D Mario. I love the idea because it gives me more Mario content. But until Nintendo announces something like that, or unless we get something else to support this idea, I'm not gonna really believe it. But I'll entertain the idea because I mean they did add DLC for Mario Kart, so in theory maybe they could do it for Mario Odyssey as well. And maybe part of their thinking is they're doing DLC for these major Mario games because while they would love to launch a new system and have new Mario games ready with that new system to take advantage of the Mario movie hype, that may not be ready. So instead, in order to take better advantage of the Mario hype, don't step on the keyboard. Do not step on the keyboard. Nope, down you go. If no cat petting in Tears of the Kingdom, we riot. There you go. Brandon the Brony Pony, hello there. Are you too late? I mean, I'm still alive now, but I am closing out soon. Anyway, what I was going to say is that the DLC, like, I could see them maybe thinking, well, we could do DLC for Mario Kart, we can do DLC for Mario Odyssey, to kind of get people more interested in these games, to kind of hype up Mario throughout the year, because they don't have a new system ready yet, and they can't release a new Mario Kart or a new Mario, 3D Mario, because they're saving those for the next big system. So that is something that could be what they're doing, and it gives me maybe some level of hope that maybe there'll be DLC for Mario Odyssey, but I don't think this is likely. Even with that email, I think that email is probably just marketing. You know, I'm entertaining the idea because it's what I do. I speculate, and there's a possibility that could happen, but most likely, I think we're just waiting for the next big Mario, and I hope that it comes out this year. But as more evidence presents itself, it's seeming more and more like this is a 2024 thing. So that's what appears to be happening. But yeah, you know, I think the next Mario is probably going to be more open. You know, I think Bowser's Fury is a hint towards that. I think when I look at that Mario movie poster, I'm not saying that's necessarily a hint for it, but it's exciting just looking at this vast or more epic world. And I think when Nintendo comes out with a new Mario game, especially if it's made specifically for the new or more powerful system, they could do a lot more with that, and that could be something really cool to see. And play, obviously. Brandon the Brony Pony added me. Are you going to do your February Direct predictions? Also, I don't know if you're a Sonic fan, but I'd love to see you predict Sonic 3. I've recently become hooked on the first 2 Sonic movies. You know what? I wasn't sure when I would do a February Direct prediction. I could do one this. Yeah. You know, I wasn't sure when I was going to do it. I mean, there's honestly a lot of video ideas that I want to get to that I haven't been able to get to. So yeah, maybe I do a prediction, if not this weekend, maybe next week. It's possible. I mean, I think we're less than a month away, so I mean, putting a predictions video out now specifically for the month wouldn't be uncalled for. All right, so I got another super chat here. I'll check that out. Taker610, 2017 equals 2023 Zelda, 3D Mario Kart 10 on new hardware. Yeah, seems like it. Excuse me. Guy you don't know. Part of me wonders if Bowser's Fury was Nintendo's attempt to tide over Mario fans with a new, albeit smaller game, because they knew the next big one was still years off from releasing. Yeah. When that happened, that's what I thought. That the next Mario is not coming out until the next new system. Spheromancer. I'd guess 2D Mario this winter, Mario Odyssey 2 and Metroid Prime 4 launch with Switch 2, then maybe a Breath of the Wild TOTK 4K duo pack. I don't know about a dual pack, but I do see some sort of enhancement special version, something like that, with Tears of the Kingdom next year with the system. That I agree with. Melfi Sky, I hope the Metroid Prime 1 remake gets announced for this year. That's what I think is happening. Yeah. Brandon the Brony Pony. Did you see the first two Sonic movies? If so, are you excited for Sonic 3? If so, what are your predictions for Sonic 3? Do you think we'll see Amy and Rogue and maybe Metal Sonic? I apologize, but I have not watched the Sonic movies. I will get around to it at some point or another, and when I do, I will talk about it. Max SD, when do you think the next Nintendo console will release? So we kind of touched on it throughout the day, or throughout the night, and I think probably 2024. I have a hope that it happens this year, but I think the signs are starting to support 2024. And I mean, so like on one end, you could argue that sales are suggesting that now Nintendo should announce it. Maybe they should have even announced it net. I think this year makes sense from a sales perspective, and I know some people are going to argue otherwise. The Switch is doing so well right now, but I just mean in terms of like dips. But the other thing to consider here is that when I say that I think it makes sense to release new hardware right now, it is because they're seeing multiple years where it's been dipping, but also because I've assumed that they would have more of a smoother transition where there'll be a lot of cross-generational releases. But with things starting to look more like a 2024 thing, and things just the system becoming more and more dated, I'm starting to think that there's gonna be more of a cold turkey, not totally cold turkey. Like I think it'll be backwards compatible and stuff like that. But I don't think there's gonna be that many cross-generational releases. I don't think they're gonna be that worried about a smooth transition. I think the longer they wait, the more fresh and exciting the new system's gonna be. And the more people will be ready to move on from Switch. So with that in mind, I could see them. I mean, if they don't want to release it this year, it's because they're thinking of not having as smooth of a transition, because with momentum dying out, they'll be ready to just kind of move on to the next big thing. But I see your other question, early 2024 or fall 2024. I personally don't see an early 2024 unless there's a price drop. I'm actually thinking mid-2024. I like mid-2024 for a few reasons. One, it gives the Switch one more full fiscal year to push sales, and from what we're seeing of the reports, they're going to try and push as many hardware as they can. But two, it gives them an opportunity to not announce anything this year, so they don't ruin potential sales this year in the holidays, because announcing it at the end of this year, right before the holidays, does not make any sense, because they're not going to ruin their holiday sales. They did this during the Wii U time because the Wii was a dead system. There was no point back then. It was okay. So instead, it were coming out like, say, March, maybe they come out like summer. And that also gives them more time to put out a price drop, lower the perceived value of Switch, but then also open up a spot for a more expensive system that could be in the $300, $350 range as it is now, but they'll have price drop the other systems, and that releases in the summer, maybe with new 3D Mario, so only about a year removed, maybe a little bit over a year removed from the Mario movie, but also within enough time that they could have that final big expansion to Tears of the Kingdom come out in terms of DLC, And then by the holiday, that's when they push out Metroid Prime 4 as an additional big title to showcase the system. So I'm thinking mid-2024, but I mean, really, I think the window is holiday 2023 to holiday 2024. I think that's the range. Where it falls in that range, it's tough to say. Got another super chat here from Taker610. Thank you, Taker. You may be onto something with Metroid Prime 4 and VR launch, right? Like, what if? And that's another interesting thing about this idea of a midsummer release. They could release Switch 2 summer, but then have the VR apparatus come out in the holiday. So they have an additional release there, and then Prime 4 can showcase both things. Something to consider. Yeah. Spheromancer. I think the launch window for the Switch 2 100% relies on the development of the games they plan on launching with it. They're going to have more games than Switch 1 launch, and they know that. You know, something I've talked about even during the show is that it feels like Nintendo hasn't had a lot of internal projects released recently, and this could have to do with the fact that they are saving them for their next system. The reason why we haven't had a lot of big releases during the last few years of holidays, at least from internal Nintendo, external teams like Platinum Games, Game Freak, Ubisoft, Koei Tecmo, like these partnerships and stuff, like that's all well and good, but they're not internal Nintendo, right? Maybe it's because they're saving their big guns for the next system. We haven't got a new Mario Kart in years. What is that ARMS Mario Kart team working on? They haven't released anything throughout the entire Switch era. Since ARMS. So they may be saving that for the next big system. Makes sense. And yes, I agree with these Spheromancer. Tears of the Kingdom can carry this year, especially they have a number of nice, smaller quality entries like F-Zero, Metroid Prime Remaster, Pikmin 4, maybe Donkey Kong. Like, those are things that can help carry them. And there's a lot of DLC coming out this year. Brian the Brony Pony. Do you think Pikmin 4 is being delayed? No. But anything's possible. I don't think it's being delayed until Nintendo tells us it's being delayed. Because why should I think it's getting delayed? Like, what about it makes you think it should be delayed? Besides, I mean, okay, so Zero Master says Pikmin 4 seems like a great 4K game for a new system. It does. But Harry Myers, one more hour on. Just keep the stream going and play some Fire Emblem for the boys. I haven't bought Fire Emblem yet, so I'd have to download it on my Switch now. But I want to get up early so I can play Fire Emblem and do stuff for it. Yeah, Pikmin 4 has a 2023 release date. I personally want to see a Switch 2 this year. It's just the signs are suggesting not. So, you know. I think, but in regards to Pikmin 4, I don't think they delay it unless they tell us they delay it. Until there's like some level of evidence to think it's getting delayed, I'm not going to assume it's getting delayed. Like, there's just, if they told us 2023, I don't see why we just don't assume 2023. Like, there's nothing beyond, oh yeah, Pikmin would be great in 4K. Like, there's no real reason for me to think we can think about this, you know? So, I mean, we can think that it'll be delayed. Pink Fat Purple. Did you see the story about making more Switches than last year? Yeah, I talked about this earlier. That's one of the reasons why I'm thinking Switch 2 is not happening this year. Because if they're focusing on making a lot of Switches this year, why would they? Harry Myers. I don't know whether I should buy and play Fire Emblem or focus on finishing Xenoblade 3. Excuse me. I'm on chapter 6. Finish Xenoblade and then play Fire Emblem. I'm glad you brought it up. Fire Emblem's coming out soon. I wonder if I should download it and play it tonight. Probably. That's the problem with me. That's the problem with digital releases. Like, they're so convenient. I could download it now and play it at midnight. Or I wait until tomorrow. I don't know. I'll be playing Fire Emblem at some point in the next 24 hours. That much is the case. Taker610 with another super chat. Thank you very much for the super chat, Taker. I appreciate it. We are due for another Luigi's Mansion, aren't we? I don't think we are. I mean, I think we should get another Luigi's Mansion, but I think Luigi's Mansion 4 should be saved for the next system. Next Level Games came out with Luigi's Mansion 3 in 2019. Did really well. And then they followed that up with Mario Strikers in 2022. There's 3-year gaps here we're seeing. I don't think they're finished. They're going to bring out Luigi's Mansion 4 until 2024. Or rather, actually, that's still soon. That's still soon. I think 2025 is more likely. But imagine a Luigi's Mansion on a new system, how good that could look. Yeah, so I do think Luigi's Mansion 4 is going to happen. I just think it happens on the next system. So, yeah. We're not that close. But some people have been, apparently there's a rumor that there's a Luigi's Mansion HD remake happening. I'm going to say this. Sometimes rumors are just come out of nothing. And I was talking about a Luigi's Mansion HD remake not that long ago. During Nintendo Prime's podcast, I was talking about it, and there's a lot of people watching then, and I brought it up. And then, like a week later, someone told me there's a rumor for a Luigi's Mansion HD remake. I think if we're going to get any sort of new Luigi's Mansion content, it's going to be an HD remake of the original. Otherwise, I don't see us getting a new Luigi's Mansion until probably 2025. If you just look at Next Level Games, like, development history, it's like every 3 years is a new game. Every 3 years. Brian the Brony Pony. Well, I just got a Game Explain video notification that Nintendo's increasing Switch production this year, which means I think Switch 2 is still quite a few years off. Yeah. Yes, guy you don't know. The Nintendo ninjas are after me. They're like shooting like allergy dust at me to make me sneeze and not breathe. Harry Myers. They should make a Star Fox game that has an online component where other players' ships can drop in with you as another character and help you. Similar to 64. Let me reread that. Make a Star Fox game that has an online component where other players' ships can drop in with you as another character and help you. That'd be really cool, just to kind of like pop in. Yeah, during the campaign, I think that'd be fun. I'm down for that. Spheromancer. Did you see that the thing on Reddit where some frames of the Tears of the Kingdom trailer look like they have flying stables in the background? No. I'm going to Google that, though. Let's see. Reddit, stables, in the sky, Tears of the Kingdom. Does anything pop up? Is Lakeside Stable in the air? Bruh. I can't tell. How what is this? Or I can't... Yeah, let me show you guys what I'm looking at here, because color me skeptical. Because that is, what even is, how am I supposed to think that's a stable? I don't even know if this is from Tears of the Kingdom. It just looks like a little boat. This one looks a little, I see what they're going for, but it's so zoomed in and so... First off, what would be the point of a stable in the sky unless they have rideable flying creatures in the sky? Or maybe they... I don't know. I like the idea of some stables being in the sky, though, because then they have to rethink their business. So either A, they start selling or like renting off flying devices or flying creatures, and that could be really fun. But I just don't see how this is anything substantial. Like, it's not enough. I'm not even sure it's from the game, you know? I'm not as confident that these are stables, but I like the idea. I think it'd be fun. Let's see here. Where am I? Yeah, Loftwings would be amazing. Yeah, the first one, it does look like it. I need something more substantial than that for me. Like, yep, that's it. That's for sure stable in the sky. Man, I was gonna end things. You guys keep asking me good questions. 10,000 noodles. Ooh, Loftwing. Breath of the Wild's world would be so... Loftwing and Breath of the Wild's world would be so satisfying. It truly would be. Harry Mars, do you think there might be a stamina wheel for how far you can fly, and getting more stamina throughout the game means you can go to farther islands? That is kind of how they did it with Breath of the Wild a little bit, right? If you can fly, then sure. But I guess the thing is, if let's say you get lost, where you can pretty much just fly wherever you go, that might break the game a little bit. Because it may want you to think about how you can get to certain particular places, but maybe there is a spot very high into the air where there are Loftwings, but it's not something you can get to until it's very late game. And once you build to that point, that's when you can find those types of mounts, which would be cool. Having Hope 5. What do you think about the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 DLC story will be about? I made a theory video on this. I think it's going to be an epilogue story of sorts that connects characters from Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3, which sounds like fan fiction, I know. But I just feel like that's what they were sort of suggesting at the end of the game. But on the flip side, another possibility that also seems supported by the game is having a prologue story based off the founders. And that may kind of fits more of what they've done in the past. It would match what they did with Torn of the Golden Country, another prologue story. But I don't know if they want to just do another prologue story. They were willing to do an epilogue story with Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition and Future Connected, but that was to set up more story afterwards. But who's to say they don't want to set up more story after Xenoblade 3? And maybe they can do that with an epilogue story of these games. So my theory has been an epilogue story that shows our characters meeting again somehow, involving Rex and all the cast and Shulk. Like, it would be cool to see a mashup of them. But a prologue seems like the safer play. Dragon Chief, do you think they postponed the HD Zelda ports because they did enough to them that they decide they are better safe for Switch 2? I just think Nintendo had a plan in mind for content, and with Tears of the Kingdom, they didn't want to release them too soon. And at this point, like, they're just gonna wait until there's a good time. The window was last year. Like, that would have been the right time. They didn't do it. So they're just gonna wait until they have another vacancy where they need those games, because those games are gonna do well. Did you keep Miss hair short or long? I don't know. Oh, Mio's. Okay, I thought you were talking about my haircut. I kept Mio's hair short. Yeah, I liked the long. It was fun to kind of look at for a little bit, but I stuck with short just because I felt like that was more Mio, and the long Mio, I felt like that was the other Mio. So I ultimately went with short. Even though, you know, I do personally like hair. I like long hair in women, but I mean, short hair is not necessarily bad either. Having Hope 5. So, like, the original Ouroboros, that would be interesting. I'm hoping more for a sequel story. Yeah, we're on the same page. I think there's a good chance they play it safe and do an original Ouroboros founder story, but I'm hoping for an epilogue story that brings in all three Xenoblade worlds. Oh, here's a cool idea, Joycey J. What if Epona isn't Tears of the Kingdom, except Epona, or rather not Epona itself, but something that has a lineage of Epona, is actually a Pegasus. So it's a horse that you can ride on the ground, but it has wings so it can fly in the sky. But it does have stamina. Can't stay in there up there for very long, but maybe that's something you can build up over time. That would be cool. I would love to have a Pegasus in Tears of the Kingdom. Yeah, having Hope 5. We're on the same page. You like Mio's long hair, but it wasn't Mio. It's more like M's hairstyle. I kept it short as well. It suits her better. Yeah, we agree with that. Sphere Man. So honestly, that's not a bad thought, though. They could easily release Twilight Princess Moonmaker as 4K individually now instead of a bundle just in HD. Thank you very much for the super chat, Zelda Femfil channel. I very much appreciated. Thank you. Do appreciate that. Joy CJ, that'd be cool as long as it's Epona-esque. Like, it would look like Epona, but it would have wings. Like, I think that'd be really cool. Alright, last question. I'm going to call it a night. Brandon the Brony Pony, you know how Nintendo surprised us with Sega Genesis games on NSO? What if this September we got Game Boy Advance, and Game Boy Color, but instead of GameCube, the surprise announcement is, drumroll, OG Xbox. I actually really like that idea. That would be crazy. Like some original Xbox games, and we get some rare games. Like we get I hope they would throw. I mean, wow. I don't remember what. Oh, there was Conquer. I doubt it'll happen, but it would be super cool. Dragon G, it may also be possible that the opponent gets a device giving her means of flying wings. I'm okay with an artificial Pegasus like that. That would be really cool. Like, I'm all for that. Hello there, Yachty. How you doing? I'm literally about to end the stream. Melfice, you had a theory that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and X are in the same universe. There was that big apocalyptic event that both worlds suffered. So maybe, but the story of Xenoblade 2, which is the original world, is that it was a internal battle. Like it was a war taking place on Earth with different humans. So that's what I thought. And then with Xenoblade X, it's actually an alien invasion that leads to the mass exodus. Right, I'm gonna call it a night now. It's getting late. I'm getting tired. Thank you all. Really appreciate it. If you like the stream, if you haven't done this before, please subscribe. But we shall see you, by we I mean me, soon. Take care, guys. Have a good night.